It is moving
Hi,
a little
Chief.
bit slow tonight. It is moving a
Hi,
little bit
Chief.
slow tonight.
Hey, now we're making progress.
It is moving a little bit slow tonight. All right, we are live.
We are live. All right, it's 6 o'clock, and tonight our intentions are, if it looks like that I'm looking up a little bit, it's because of the way the camera is, and I'm trying to look at the screen also. But our intention tonight is, as we've done over the last several months, we've just kind of taken an evening and opened it up to questions from our community to keep them well informed about what we're doing here at City Hall, what we're doing around the city, projects that are on the table or that are potentially coming to us, and just to keep everybody informed of kind of what's going on. Of course, with this crazy time that we've had and the way that we've had to do meetings and not gather in person at City Hall, I think it's got its pros and its cons. Getting to meetings nowadays, if you got two meetings that are 2 hours apart, it's pretty easy to make both of them. So I would just like to kind of start it out with City Hall still remains closed to the public at this time. You can still do business online. You can still call and ask questions and get directed to the proper personnel that you're wanting to ask questions to. So that's still going. We had our first court date in about 2 months this past week. Of course, court date usually lasts until about noon. This one lasted a bigger part of the afternoon. So up until, I believe, 3 or 4 o'clock that day. From what we gather, it went well and it was very successful. So we kind of have developed a process and how we would conduct these types of meetings. Also, what we've done is the council has approved a way to be able to hold quasi-judicial meetings. And these are ones that require public hearings and public process. With us not knowing exactly when we can start gathering in groups again and doing it safely, we needed to find a way to continue to move business along as usual and then not delay any projects or variances or HPRC in that way, and including planning commission meetings. So we're doing a really good job of that. We should take our hats off to John Kane. He has been our technology master over the last few months, and without him, we'd probably still be taking Polaroid pictures and sharing them. So with that said, some of the things, projects, we still have not, of course, the Pine Slope project was denied by Planning Commission a few weeks ago. It was a 5-0 vote. And that developer has made some contact to the city, but nothing formally has been submitted. Nothing's in the queue. And we really don't know what's going to happen with that project. So that's kind of been silent for a while. 2800 Minor, weeks ago, there was some discussion. I'm not sure if the developer on that project has not made any contact with me, and maybe Andy, you could help me a little bit. Do you have any more information to share with us on that?
No, I think the developer is still working on the options of either rezoning for higher density, possibly apartments, or whether to stick with the current zoning of the property, which would be more less density in townhomes. So that's the applicant is still weighing his options there.
All right, thanks for that update, Andy. Another thing that we have finally gotten to, a milestone in our community, ACC, the contractors that have been doing our road project for the last 4 years, the projects are finally done. All the there may be some, if any, um, last punch items that need to be done. John Bordoni could speak to that just for a second. Give us a little bit update on that, John.
Mayor, the ACC has pretty much completed all of the punch list. Right now, there is currently nothing that they're working on. They have moved out all of their equipment and we're pretty much finished.
You said that you weren't for that.
No, and I've got some scenarios.
Sorry. So they're about done, cleared out of here.
They, for 99% are out of here.
So I think that, you know, it did take a little bit longer than we were expecting. We are glad that that project, with that bond money, that was the end of our bond expenditure, and it's finally done. And so we can kind of take a deep breath as a community, with no more major road construction coming on, and we really don't have anything planned as this time. Over the last few weeks, there you go, John. Over the last few weeks, we've also, Public Works has detected some water line breaks. We had, I need some water. We had one on 103, we had one on Pine Slope. And then I was informed today that there's actually a couple more out there that we're chasing down still and continuing to do. So our Public Works Department is having a lot of things that they're having to keep up with and do maintenance on over the last few weeks and continue through now. There's been some concern from some of the folks in the community, and John Kane put it out on Facebook and our website the other day about, you know, some trees that are lining on Colorado Boulevard. Reference to those trees. Last year, if you remember, we had some trees at that time that didn't make it. They were under warranty, so they were replaced. However, these trees now that didn't come back this year are not under warranty. So we're actively looking for somebody to come out and replace those trees and try to re-stabilize them so that, you know, once all those are in, as you could tell if you drove down Colorado Boulevard right now, if all those trees were starting to fill in, you know, it's going to be beautiful, and it's going to be, you know, something great for our community. Waterwheel Park is another thing that we've had calls on. We know that Waterwheel Park is way behind its finish. It's been I wouldn't say a battle, but back and forth with CDOT since they were still responsible for replacing the dead trees in there, make sure that the irrigation system was working properly, and they've just been kind of slow rolling it. We have been reaching out to the new Region 1 director about this. This is on his list of things for us to get done. The city has offered to hire somebody, and it could potentially be the same people that are going to help us replace the trees on Colorado Boulevard, that if CDOT would pay for it, we'll find the person to come out and do it. However, the city and council and myself don't feel comfortable with just doing it and hopeful that we would get repaid for that without some kind of an agreement that we're still going to kind of hold off. We understand that is a huge asset to our community. When it was built, it was for gathering down there. It was a beautiful place to walk, and it just hasn't been that at all. So we're still working on that. Let's see, what else do we have? The park, Courtney Riley Cooper Park. We know that there's some weeds growing, and those are actively being taken care of. John Bordoni has always elected every year not to turn the sprinkler system on until after Memorial Day. As you know, if we did that last year, it would have froze up because last year, Memorial Day weekend, it was snowing here, and, you know, people were still skiing heavily, and our businesses were starting to suffer because here we were on Memorial Day and nobody could use the outdoors to recreate and to visit our community. The wastewater treatment plant is still coming along. I need to get an update from John. So John, again, can you kind of update me and the community on where we're at on the wastewater treatment plant project one?
On project one of the wastewater treatment plant, the contractor is currently about 91% complete. Excel is scheduled to install the electrical meter tomorrow. So that means that we can get all the new blowers tested and start testing some of the equipment that has been installed to ensure that they're working properly. So that's where we're at with that.
All right, thank you, John. Let's see. So if the public is not aware, the city started having staff meetings right after the epidemic came to our community, and we shut down City Hall. We were starting to have meetings every day to discuss how we're going to handle it, what we're going to do moving forward, and the ideas that we have of keeping everybody in our community healthy and safe, and be able for the city to provide the needs of some of our citizens in the community. We have received a grant of $25,000. It's called the Social Impact Grant. And what we've done with this is we have provided grants that our citizens within the city limits can apply for some help, whether it's food, whether it's to help to pay a car payment or mortgage. We're giving these out with a short form application, and it would be vetted by Wonder here in City Hall. And then we would give you a call back and award you the grant money. These have been done in $100 increments, and I believe we've done 75. So that number rose pretty quickly from last week. I think this is another sign that the city really cares about our citizens, and we want to do everything we can to try to help them. We're looking at going after a second one here and there in the future. We're going to continue to keep an eye on how these are dispersed, and if people that we're going to kind of see if people are going to need more help, and how we can distribute that money in a fashion that everybody can benefit from it. So keep that in mind, community. You can call here at City Hall and ask for Wanda Martell. She can help you with that. The citizens of the community have been great. The volunteers in our community is overwhelming. Thank you. I take my hat off to you. I think all the council does for caring about your neighbor, making sure that your neighbors and your friends are taken care of and are provided the things that they need. From the beginning, the city with Chief Malanka and others formed I wouldn't call it a food bank, but we had a food distribution. It was mostly soup for everybody. And it was kind of a no one goes hungry campaign to make sure that if somebody was having trouble getting food or getting around, that we could provide somebody to give them that hand to get the things that they needed. So one of the bigger things that we've been talking about, and what we did is we formed what we called a economic impact task force. We asked for applications or letters of intent or interest from any member of the community. The original group was about 14 people. It turned into, we have close to 20 people on that call and plus from different industries, some residents, lots of business owners. And what this was about was to start the recovery process, how we were going to move the city forward. The city is running on probably 20 cents to the dollar right now. Our $3 million plus budget, with the expected revenues from sales tax that we're going to see over the next couple of months of what the impact really is, we want to be prepared for it. What we did is we asked all of our department heads to kind of take their budget that they presented and that we adopted at the first of the year, and go through there to see what we can do without this year, what we can put and push off and kick it down the road without affecting our quality of life here in Idaho Springs. and all of them did an amazing job. One request, and all of us agreed on it and kept agreeing on it. The chief asked for to make sure that our coverage in our police department was stayed in place. Last thing we wanted was to have to furlough anybody from the city, and knock on wood, we haven't had to. And they have actually, some of our staff here at the city has taken on other assigned jobs, special assignments to help in other areas, you know, some even with the census, cold calling, helping us out with that, volunteering. So changing up some hours and working different shifts and kind of juggling things along. So thank you all. You should thank your department heads of the city and the employees of the city for their commitment and doing the things, you know, to keep this city functioning. Let's see. So at this time, if you haven't heard, last week, the Planning Commission approved 4-1 the same hearing that we're going to be hearing tonight at 7 o'clock. So I hope you'll stick around. This would be for the gondola project. Other than that, we had an HPRC meeting that went positive. This was about a CO2 tank on the west side of Tommyknockers that they wanted to replace. It was approved by the HPRC. Things like that, when you do something different to your building in the historic district, it has to go through a process starting with the Historic Preservation Review Committee. So that has happened. And then let me talk a little more about our recovery task force. So we have been meeting twice a week, every week since we formed this group. And what this is about is not only recovery of our businesses in town, but how we continue and recover from all the other things that affect our residents of our community. And those two kind of go hand in hand. Things that we do with our business also offset and affect our citizens as well. So as we're moving forward, and if you haven't heard yet, we have before that, we have gone through many different phases of this stay-at-home order. And finally, this Monday, the Governor Polis had released some guidelines for start reopening. It's not a turn the light switch on and everybody's 100%, but it's going to be a slow go that we as a city and the county public health is going to have to really keep an eye on and monitor. The last thing we want to do is get to a point that we have another spike with the COVID-19 and cause us to have to back up. We were kind of expecting the governor to come out with some sort of a 30% capacity at restaurants and businesses, and that hasn't happened. Actually, they went with 50%. Now, the other thing about that is this rollout of this change in the orders has not helped the rafting industry, the wedding and large gathering type industries, the hot springs. It did not help them right now. I know that those are continuing to be talked about, and also working with the county, they are preparing what's called a variance. You probably have heard on the news that these variances were allowing some counties, and it comes from the county level. It cannot be a municipality that can do these variances. It's got to be from the county level. And they have been able to submit variances and approved to start opening. And some of the counties out there, the larger counties, are a little bit ahead of Clear Creek County. But the flip side of that is we should be thankful that we've got our county public health keeping an eye on things and making sure that we do things right without any, another spike of this epidemic. So here, the council is going to be talking about this tonight. Most of the discussion for the reopening of the businesses and the restaurants downtown and on the East End, this has been a collective discussion. And we will be talking later about how we can activate the street. The businesses, if they can only operate at not only 50%, but no more than 50 people in their establishment. So if a place holds 250 people, at 50%, they can't have 125 people in there. They can still only have 50 people in their establishment. We have what's called, and we have with the city for the last several years, it is called a revocable encroachment agreement, where the council an idea about using public property to activate your building, use the outdoors, and try to help promote additional revenues and revenues to the business and tax revenues to the city. We currently have a few of those types of encroachment agreements in place, and we are actively accepting those right now for those businesses that want to activate the front of their building. And we're also talking about the mall area behind the buildings. Now, of course, we're keeping an eye on the safety, access, and the emergency response. So the street won't be completely closed down. We will leave a 12 to 13 foot drive lane, if you will, in between the two sides of the street. The rule of thumb is each business can submit to the city a design and some sort of sketch of what their area would look like. We've allowed them to go from the curb line in front of their building, once you get across the sidewalk, to measure out 12 feet. And you can go from one end of your property line to the other end and 12 foot out. We've received two applications at this time. We're receiving more today. As of today, this morning, as we talked, two applications have been turned in. We know others are actively working on them, and we're expecting a lot more. Now, the retail stores won't, since they don't serve alcohol, they will not be required to mark off and enclose their areas. What we're calling it is a virtual diagram of, where you would like to pull your merchandise out to the street, leave the sidewalk open for the pedestrians to walk on, and use and maintain that area for your benefit. So we think we've got a really good plan in place. It's, of course, it's an adaptive management that we can change if we think of some better ideas or some better ways of doing things, whether it's safety, social distancing, or whatever it is, then we can adjust to it. So that's another thing that we've got going. Also, this isn't just about the downtown area. East End businesses have the same opportunity. If you want to be a part of this and you want to access and use public property, we encourage you to call City Hall, John Kane, and go online and get the application. There's some criteria that you'll have to include in that and turn it in. We're turning these around really fast. As far as the alcohol sales, we had been thinking about doing some sort of a gathering type where it would look like a special event package, so we could have open container when we close the streets down. That didn't seem like a good place to start. We thought that we would start smaller by having each restaurant or business that served alcohol to do their own designed area and keep it that way and move and adapt from there. The city has purchased about 25, I think it's 25 park benches. Our idea is once we can start having more gatherings, we would like to be able to put these park benches out, because in reality, I think that people are going to continue to get items to go and not go in, especially some that are higher risk folks are not going to want to go in these establishments, even though that they're open. They're still going to want to stay their distance, want to be outside. Being outside is much better than being in a room. The ventilation does have a lot of how the virus spreads. So we're going to strategically, we will be putting these picnic benches around the community. And this is East End, downtown. We're looking at Citizens Park. So we've got some ideas. So we will be rolling that out. Right now, they're not available. They're on their way in delivery, and John will notify us when we get them. So with the closure of the street, sorry, we've decided to go ahead. We were teetering on whether we should go just on the weekend or all week long. And due to the complications of trying to move everything after the weekend, the task force and our staff group decided that, and this will be talked about and decided with council tonight, but what we had decided was to hopefully keep the streets closed permanently for the summer and adapt from there. Also, another thing that we've done is the drive lane down the center is for emergency responders, for our public works crews to be able to drive down through there and do the maintenance and things that they need to do. And also, it's going to be turned into a one-way. Of course, once we take 12 feet from each curb line, there's not enough room in there to put 2 lanes. So this will be traffic from the west to the east, one way from 13th. Once you come down 13th, the closure won't really be until you get to 14th. So from 14th, it'll be one way down to 17th. So keep that in mind, public, that will be happening with this rollout. Like I said, there's only 2 people that has their applications in. So you might start seeing the businesses put out what we'll call barriers or enclosures. We've asked them to be creative and stylish when they do this. What we hope we won't see, I hope, and we will address, we don't want caution tape around some pylons out there. We want this to be attractive. We've got a quaint community, and that's what we want to promote it. And I believe that all the businesses are going to do their best in making that happen. Let's see. So right now, what I'd like to do, I've been going on about 30 minutes, is if there's anybody on the call in our meeting that would like to ask any question to myself, any council members, chief of police, public works, or city administrator, we're all here to answer your questions. And if we don't have the answer for you now, give us a day and we'll be able to get back with you and give you some correct information.
Mike, there's a question in the chat.
Okay.
The question is from Randy, and it says, there are currently some restaurants that have tables and chairs on the sidewalk, also benches. Will they need to remove these?
So we've been talking about that. What we've kind of talked about is some of these tables and chairs were already out there, and the benches have been being used spaces for people that are getting to-go orders. Anybody that has added tables since the coronavirus and our pandemic has started, we're asking that you remove those tables for this time. We're trying to keep the sidewalks as clear as we can. That's going to help us with social distancing and movements around downtown. So I hope that answered your question. And we don't want a bunch of tables showing up on the sidewalks. That's why we're going to provide out in front of the building on the street space for you to set some tables out there. Anybody? I know this is going to be kind of hard to get questions in. Everybody, nobody's on a picture, right? So,
everybody should have the ability to talk if you're participating in the meeting.
So Amy or Danny or Phyllis, Brandy, George, we see you, Mary Jane, Cassandra. If y'all have something you'd like to share or ask a question of the city, please do. A quiet bunch, huh?
This is Candy Luco. Can you hear me?
Oh, hi, Candy. I don't see your name up
Hi.
there, but you must be just on the phone call?
Yeah, she's in the corner there.
Okay, I see you now. What can we answer for you, Candy?
The library is planning to do curbside service. Where are you shutting off or going to the one lane on Minor Street?
So there will be no curbside service unless the establishment wants to walk it down to the end of the block. So nobody will be able to, Tommy Knockers won't be able to do it. Nobody on Main Street will be able to do that. And most of these restaurant owners are on the task force.
She's at the library, and I have
The library.
I have a meeting with them tomorrow.
Okay, John Kane said, oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I didn't hear the library part. I thought you were talking about the restaurant. The library, John Kane has a meeting with them tomorrow to clarify that and figure out the way that they can operate. I'm sorry for misunderstanding and or missed one word in there. That was library. Is that all you have for us, Candy? You usually have a lot for us, and I was hoping that you had some more.
I do have a couple more questions.
Okay, sure.
I'm curious about, I read last week's packet. I was unable to be on or watch the live stream. From what I could see, the city's planning to build a $7 million park above the Argo, and we're looking at borrowing $400,000 from the Argo. You guys could explain that a little bit, or maybe I misread.
No, and that will be discussed again tonight. That was a work session last week. This was, if you might remember, about a year ago, the city applied for a grant and has some matching money to try to develop some of the trail system up there. We were denied the grant at that time. The city still has the money, but right now with the economic times, we were not going to reapply and use that money for that park. What the Argo has offered to do is to advance the $400,000 to help us, one, to use that money to match another grant, to even maybe lower that $400,000 figure. And the payback would be generated from the ticket sales at the Argo. So for the first 2 years is our projection that 50 cents for every ticket would be the city's, would go to the city. And what we thought we would do, and what the discussion and what we talked about last week, was that money would actually go back to help pay back the money. So I guess twofold here. One, the city is not upfronting out of our own pockets the $200,000 that we were going to a year ago. And it gives us an opportunity to go ahead and try to complete, and Candy, this is not all the trails. This is just going to be the minimal trails, a few hiking trails, and actually Kamba is going to build for us the downhill biking trails. So this will just help us get the up and down trail on the property that the city owns around the Argo.
And Mayor, if I may, also that's at 0% interest.
Right, yeah, they're not gonna, so it's really not coming out of taxpayer money. This is just the revenues that we would generate with our agreement from them would pay this back over the next 2 years.
We have 3 more questions in the chat.
Okay.
The first one is again from Randy. When does Minor Street become one way?
Chief, can you help me with that one? Do we have a idea when we would want to do that one-way street?
Mayor, I can take a stab at that. The idea is that the street would be closed to pedestrians only, but there would be a single lane, one way, for emergency access and also for deliveries, particularly in the morning. And a date has not been set yet for when the closure would occur. It needs to go to council tonight for discussion at the city council meeting. And then we also need to see what the next stages are with the governor, with we're at the safer at home right now level, and we'll go to a new level that will expire on June 1st. So we're going to get some guidance probably this week about what we may expect in the next stage. So again, it would not be for traffic. It would be one lane going from west to east down the hill for emergency access and deliveries only. And when the closure would occur still is to be determined.
Okay. Next question is from Amy Tomlinson. What will the pet policy be around tables where food is being served in the pedestrian area?
So there will, food will not be, are you talking, Amy, I need to get that clarified. Are you talking about to-go orders, or are you talking about the businesses that are actually doing service out on the public areas?
The businesses who are serving food out in the public areas.
Okay, they will have,
Seated, eat,
they
and-
will, yeah, they will have an enclosure. They will be required to do an enclosure to square off their serving space. So if you get a beer at Bojo's, the only place you can go with that beer is the areas that they've got marked off and that they've had permission through the city to, and not only the city council and the city hall, but also the liquor authority, which at the city, which we're gonna be able to do those administratively and approval through the state. So there are a couple of stages it has to go through, and they will have to stay within that area. This will not be an open container carry all everywhere.
Okay, I was
we won't
asking-
be able to do that.
I was actually asking about pets, dogs.
Oh,
The
pets.
pet
Well, so are you talking about pets in the walking areas or in the serving areas?
The serving areas. So if someone is seated at a table to have lunch and the restaurant is going to bring their food out to them, can they have their dog right next to them at the table?
That is up to each individual business.
Okay.
Okay.
She had a follow-up question. How often will the sidewalk be cleaned in the pedestrian area? It seems that a sparkling clean area would be more attractive to visitors.
And that's one of our more discussed items with our task force. The downtown business has really said that they would help with any additional, because we know there's going to be more trash. There's going to be things blowing when a big wind comes up. So we have been discussing that. We have ordered additional trash cans, which will require our guys at Public Works to hopefully not have to empty them as often and maintain the trash. But everybody downtown has been very outspoken about how they will help keep the streets clean and the trash cleaned up and swept up. So we're hoping that works. And, you know, like I said, we'll keep an eye on this. And if things start happening, we'll go back to the task force and say, hey, task force, we need to make a decision on how we can do a better job of doing this.
Okay, and then the third question, will parking be allowed on the side streets adjacent to the pedestrian area? And if so, how will the people who park there turn around?
So the only street that I've talked about or has been discussed turning into a two-way, we've talked about 17th, turning it into a two-way here by City Hall, and potentially the 14th on the west side of Tommyknockers. John Bordoni and Chief have been looking at this, and Chief assures us that we're going to have a way to maneuver in and out to get traffic in and out of the downtown area and out of our parking lots. Did that answer your question?
Yes, I was just
Okay.
thinking about the street along the Cidery, where it's one way. And if they park going south and they can't turn on to Minor Street because it's pedestrians, how would they be able to turn around? But maybe that is the end. I don't think it is the end. I think
No, that
the
would-
senior center is the
Yeah,
end of the
Chief,
pedestrian, right?
Did you speak on that, Chief?
Yeah, anybody that makes deliveries or vehicles that are heading southbound on 15th, they're gonna have to go to the parking lot. And from the parking lot, they can turn east and get onto 16th. And that corridor, when they make the left turn by the Moose onto 16th, should be large enough. The delivery trucks, the semis, use that frequently to make deliveries on 16th Street there. So hopefully that will not be a problem. What we would like to do though is as far as deliveries go, Minor will be open until, did we select 10 o'clock, Mr. Mayor? It'll be open for deliveries until 10 a.m. So preferably the delivery trucks will get off at 2:40. They'll come down Minor. they'll make their delivery, they'll proceed to Riverside, and then back onto Colorado, whether they're going east or west. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
It just seems awkward for, if you're gonna have the public parking on those streets and there's no way for them to get out, how would that work? So that helps.
Yeah. There were one of the questions that come on earlier was what were we going to do with the northbound streets? For the time being, 14th Street is closed due to construction, but 16th Street will remain open.
And since we're talking about parking, another thing that's been heavily discussed in our morning meetings is how are we going to continue to protect what we did last summer and protecting our residents that we used to have the public and employees parking in front of their homes. We are coming up with a strategy how to do that. There had been talking about turning the paid parking back on. I have kind of put up a strong arm against that, especially for this first weekend. But in reality, that might be the only way that we could have the enforcement out here to protect our citizens in the permit parking areas. You know, when we did the paid parking, this was first and foremost to help relieve our citizens in their parking needs and make it better for them. And then second, of course, turnover for our businesses and parking here. Another big discussion has been, the business owners are going to really keep an eye on where their employees are parking. We're designating some places that we feel that were not highly used during the paid parking last year. And we're really asking them to direct their employees to those lots. And I believe that we're going to have some very good participation from these business owners. You got another one, John?
Let's try to see this. I think that is it at the moment.
Okay. Do we have anything else from the public? Tracy, I see you. Rick Wells. Hey, Rick, maybe you could, we're going to ask you to give us an update, something that I'm not aware of. What is what is going on at the visitor center right now? And what are we planning to do to reopen when we get the order that you're able to reopen? Sorry to put you on the spot. Yeah. Okay.
Tracy raised her hand.
Tracy, do you have a question?
There it is. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, there you go. You
There I
were
am.
muted. All right.
Okay.
Thanks, Rick.
Yeah, we're actually having a meeting tomorrow night, kind of emergency meeting to talk about that. We've been doing some exploration as far as what we can do. We're in constant contact with the Forest Service, trying to find out how we can sustain that relationship. Since we're kind of in bed with them, we have to be very careful about how we address our opening. We're going to be discussing that at great length tomorrow. We're looking forward to trying to get open. We're also trying to be very cautious about how we do it. I went up to Georgetown today to talk about their reopening and how it's been going for them. We're talking about having a metered opening with people being asked to wear masks and coming in at a little at a time. I'm finding out from up there what their biggest use is. People are using the bathroom, to be honest with you. So it's just going to be an interesting discussion that's going to evolve tomorrow night as far as how we're going to be able to open and what exactly our criteria is going to be for allowing people to come inside the building and making sure that we can meet the needs of our partners, the city included, with the visitor center.
All right.
That's
Hey,
about as vague as I can be, but I'm sorry. We're going to be really working hard tomorrow night on figuring out that strategy specifically.
okay, Rick, thank you. And for folks that don't know you, what's your position? Executive director of the?
No, I'm the president of the Historic Society.
President.
Genevieve, yeah,
But
Genevieve
also, we ought to thank Rick and his wife. They are frontliners. They are in the medical industry. And thank you so much for all you do and what you've been doing through this pandemic and keeping people safe and just putting the effort and putting your time to it. And and being out there for everybody.
Well, thank you, everyone. And thank you, Mayor. And of course, everyone else here at the meeting. I appreciate that.
All right. Tracy, did you want to say something?
Just real quick, Mayor, thank you so much. So I just wanted to say thank you to you and city staff and city council for all the work that you're doing, and Jonathan Kane assisting in all these variances. I don't think the people realize that there's a tsunami of protocol.
Questions, huh? Not really, but Travis now has to present remotely.
Hey, Mary Jane, would you mute yourself? We can hear you.
I'm sorry.
Anyway, just all that you're
Okay,
doing.
go ahead, Tracy.
I don't think that the public realizes the amount of information coming through that must require interpretation and delivery, and all of the coordination that you're doing at the county level. Everybody's trying to make the best they can of this very unfortunate situation. You guys are doing a great job. Thank you to the department heads. Just appreciate you all for trying to keep us safe, and then at the same time abiding by the laws that you're getting handed to you from the state, from the county. And I just think y'all are doing an excellent job. And so thank you so much.
All right, thank you for that, Tracy. Do we have anybody else with their hand up?
I don't think so.
So another thing that I would like to say before we end, so we can have a few minutes before our regular meeting, is I'm also involved on the policy group with the county on things that we're trying to put together for a variance and other activity. Actually, we have Councilman Harmon that sits on the resiliency group. Thank you, Chuck, for being on that, and your input has been very valuable. And George Marlin, he's on right now. He's done a great job in, running these meetings and making sure that we get information and keeping up. And George and I stay in pretty good contact with each other. And we have a consensus building between us, and we do a lot of discussion. So George, thank you for that. And I'll give you just a minute if you'd like to say a few words from the county level to the public that we have with us tonight on some things that we should keep an eye on over the next couple of weeks. Are you there, George?
There he is. He's coming.
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Thanks, George.
Okay. I think that, Mike, you did a pretty comprehensive job covering everything. In general, I'm proud to live in Idaho Springs and be represented by you and council. And the work you've done to secure that $25,000 grant has me a little jealous on behalf of the constituents of mine who are not in Idaho Springs, but in a good way, of course. As far as updates, in Clear Creek, we have been struggling with the legacy of having underinvested in public health coming into this pandemic. And it's been a real challenge ramping up that capacity, but we're starting to see serious progress. We are now have drastically expanded testing capacity. We are now offering to anybody in the community or anybody who works in the community to be able to get tested. I don't have the information on dates right here in front of me. So I'll just say that if you are interested in getting a test, reach out to Crystal Brandt. You can do so via email, cbrandt. I would need to know how to spell her name. I don't know if there's a D in there.
Yes, there is. BRANDT.
BRANDT at clearcreekcounty.us. She can get you an appointment to get tested. We also have created 3 new public health nurse positions, which would quadruple our capacity. Gives you an idea of the state we were in coming into this thing. We have appointed a deputy director of public health to focus entirely on COVID. And we've worked our EMS staff into helping build our testing capacity as well. So things are looking up. And that's really important because our public health capacity is what will create the conditions that we can open safely, that we can detect any increase in community cases here locally and respond to them. So I'm really proud of our staff. They've been working hard. We learned today that our deputy public health directors worked 72 days in a row. I'm thankful and also worried that, I'd like to get her some time off, but my hat's off to her. And I think that is sufficient. And just thanks to everybody for your patience and your tolerance in this. There's a lot of frustration out there. I share it. And I think in spite of that, y'all have treated me pretty well. So thank you.
All right. Hey, thanks for that, George. All right. Well, it's about 7 minutes till. So at this time, I want to thank everybody on our call and joining us tonight. I hope you're going to stick around, be here for our public hearing. I'm sorry, public hearing at our regular meeting. So with that, we'll disconnect now and we'll see you at 7
Hey,
o'clock.
Mayor,
Yes, Andy.
should everyone stay on the line who wants
Oh.
to stay on for the regular meeting, or how should that work?
If you want to view the meeting, you can view it on the city council page of the Idaho Springs website.
Okay, but should all the participants in the meeting tonight?
All the meeting participants should stay on the call.
Okay, thank you. Just want to clarify.
All right. Thanks, everybody. If you ever need any questions, you have my email. Mute me.
Hey, Bob. Would you unmute? I got a question to ask you. Bob, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Hey, how did you guys open over there at the Argo? What are you doing? Separating tour groups like, 10 feet apart or something?
Yeah, well, we didn't really have much in the way of groups. There were 15 people in one whole day, our best day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
Hey, I want to answer that. We actually haven't opened for tours yet.
Oh, okay.
That's right.
We're open for the mercantile and for panning.
Yeah, the gift.
Oh,
Yeah,
all right.
that's right.
But we sent in the variants along with the other tours to get that open this weekend.
We've
Okay.
been working on the variants actually until about an hour ago, a little over an hour ago, to work out the details and make sure that tunnel and mine and mill tours were all included in the variants that's going to the state. Which
That's good, Bob, because I have not seen any guidance from the state at all on any kind of tours. So I'm glad you guys are
Yeah.
submitting that.
Yeah, outfitters and rafting, and yeah, it was and the train, of course, Georgetown.
I've seen the train and the rafting.
Well, we are to be included in that, and yeah.
Oh, good. Okay.
6 phone calls. Amy Saxon is leading the charge from the county perspective, and I talked with her last thing, so I think we're in good shape there.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, but that's a good point. We hadn't, yeah, it was just that bottom part that was open, and that was only for one day, I believe.
So you guys, I think, are ahead of the curve because I've looked at many other county submissions, and I have not seen any of the tours in any of the other county submissions.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I just saw there were a lot of counties that had variances, but I didn't read any of them. So
Yeah, because if there were any, I would turn you on to them, and I have not even seen one.
yeah, okay.
Hey, Chuck, Pitkin County was granted a variance and pretty extensive in terms of what they can do. And also pretty extensive considering that that's where a lot of people in the city of Aspen got infected.
And did they include tour groups there in Pitkin County?
I can check on that. I've been keeping Jonathan, Kane, and Andy sort of updated.
Oh, good.
Just on what some of the different communities are doing. Pretty much both Aspen and Breckenridge are sort of doing exactly what Idaho Springs is doing in terms of their main street. So
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, there is a great deal of detail in these variances, from everything disinfecting the hard hats or helmets in the case of rafting to the shuttle buses being cleaned in between each tour group, which we hope to get groups coming up here. And so anyway, yeah, there's a lot of work going on, and getting the supplies that are a little hard to reach is another issue. But that's
yeah. Oh, yeah.
So we're good. The webinar thing. Hang on.
Hey, Travis, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, it looks like we have everybody on. We will now start our regular meeting on Tuesday, May 26, 2020. It's a little after 7. Can I have roll call for Diane? Diane? Hang on just a second. We're waiting on Diane.
Michael Hillman,
Here.
Scott Pennell,
Here.
Chuck Harmon,
Here.
Bob Bolin,
Here.
John Curtis,
Here.
Art Cacavelli, Art Cacavelli, Jim Clark.
Here.
Art needs to unmute.
Yeah, unmute Art. There you go. Say here.
Can you hear? Well, I'm here.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Everybody's here. Please stand with us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the
United States of America
and to the
republic
for which it
stands
one
nation
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
liberty and
freedom and
justice
justice
for all.
for all.
Thank you. Please be seated.
Play ball.
We have an agenda in front of us. I'm not aware of any amendments that we need to do. So can I have a motion, please?
I would move to approve the agenda for the May 26, 2020 meeting.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion about the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. With tonight's agenda, do we feel that anybody has a conflict of interest? I will say that I will, first, I will note that when we get to ordinance number 7, that I will recuse myself. Does anybody else feel that they have a conflict of interest tonight?
Yes, this is Bob on item 9 regarding the Argo and item 11B, resolution 13 regarding the Argo. I will recuse myself.
All right. Thank you, Councilman Bolin. With that, it's ordinance 7 and 11 and 9 and 11B for Councilman Bolin. All right. We will move down to the approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion, please?
I would move that we approve the minutes from the May 11th, 2020.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Got a motion and a second. Discussion. Is there anything that we see in there that we want to address or fix? All right, hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none, we will move down to the bills. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the bills to May 26, 2020.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I got a motion and a second. Discussion. Does anybody have any questions they would like to ask our department heads or others of what one of our payments may need, what they are?
Yeah, this is Art. I have a question, please.
Sure, go right ahead, Art.
Page 4, item CIS number 1.
So CIS number 1, that's for our contract planner, Barb Cole.
Okay. Was that for a series of issues that was discussed, or is that mainly for the Argo request?
This is, Andy, you can help me on this, but I believe this is for the Argo And I think there was some time also dedicated for some other communications that Ms. Cole has done with future project developers.
Mayor,
Andy, do you have anything?
Mayor, that's correct. It's Argo, several other projects, and then also general planning services as well.
Would we be able to break that down at some point?
Yes, we can provide you a breakdown.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
You have anything else for us, Art?
No,
No?
I mean, I do, but I don't want to take up much time. I'm fine with the others.
Okay. Anybody else on council that has any questions? Okay.
On that item that Art brought up, do we have an idea of how much the planning is going to cost us now that we don't have a full-time planner?
You know, Scott, that's going to all depend on time spent. We're billed hourly, so that will be dependent on the projects that are brought to the city and what help we need from Barb's company.
Is it a possibility that it's going to exceed Alan's wages that he was charging, that we were charged by his wages?
That's where I was going.
That, you know, that is unknown. That is unknown at this time. Are you, we just don't know what projects are going to come down the pike over the next several months. It's going to be hard to determine. If everything goes in the order that it was going before the COVID-19, I could see that exceeding the salary that we were paying a full-time planner.
Yeah, and I mean, under this budget, it just seems to be a concern.
Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Good questions. I think that should be a discussion if we want to start talking about advertising. We're going to have two positions to look at. We still need a water and wastewater superintendent and ORC because that's a contract also. And that's a little more set of dollars spent on that from Ramey Environmental, where the work from and the need for the planning services are project based. So I think that's a good discussion that we need to be having in the near future. Okay, with that, any other questions on the bills? Okay, can I have a roll call, Diane, please?
Michael Hillman,
Yes.
Scott Pennell,
Yes.
Chuck Harmon,
Yes.
Bob Boland,
Yes.
John Curtis,
Yes.
Art Cacavelli,
Yes.
Jim Clark.
Yes.
Okay. I don't know of any unscheduled public comment. Diane, do we have any?
No, sir.
All right, thank you, Diane. Okay, we are going to move into that little packet that we got last Friday. And everybody had, had to balance their time with a holiday weekend and try to take in a lot of information. And
I'll recuse myself at this point.
Okay, thank you, Bob.
Actually, there's resolution 12, which
okay. How did I miss that? Well, we're not down to resolutions yet.
No, we're not done there yet.
Yeah, that'll come
Yeah,
after.
we're good.
I think it's just in the wrong, right, Diane? We're doing planning community development first, and then we'll do resolutions. Okay, so at this time, this hearing will come to order. This is a public hearing before the City Council of the City of Idaho Springs on resolution number 13, series 2020. A resolution conditionally approving a final development plan and a related public improvement agreement for the Mighty Argo Phase 1 gondola at Virginia Canyon Mountain Park. The order of this hearing will be as follows. Staff introduction and testimony. The applicant will be sworn in by the city clerk and public testimony. This hearing is now open and the time is 7:12. All right, we're going to go to staff testimony. And we're looking for Barb.
Barb is here. Let me get Barb here. Okay. So Andy, should I start my slide presentation or did you want to say something?
No, Barb, go ahead.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to try and. So what I'm going to do is go through a very short slide presentation to give you an overview of where we've been at and the work that Andy and I had been doing with the applicant over the last month. If you, more than a month, this was scheduled for a public hearing, I believe in front of the Planning Commission on April 1st. And obviously our first meeting was on May 20th. So can you all see the screen?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so the purpose of this hearing and our findings is to determine if the FDP submittal is consistent with the approved PD zoning. So the municipal code requirement for a final development plan is a little bit different than a final development plan if it was not planned development zoning. So what the code says is the plan shall have, and this is a quote out of the code, sufficient detail to determine the proposed development generally conforms to the intent of the PD at the time of final development plan.
Hey, Barb, this is Andy. Is it possible to make that a full screen image? I think you have that option maybe in the upper right corner. And John, I don't know if you're on, if you can assist, John Kane.
It says it's full screen.
Mayor, is John with you?
Yeah, there you go. That's bigger right there.
That's full screen.
We got it cut off though.
Oh, now it's cut off.
So yeah, I'm going to need John's.
Oh, there you go.
Let me try. Hold on.
Maybe.
Let me try here.
Hey, Andy, I'm seeing on my screen, if you go up to the top and you hit view options, it will give you the ability to increase the size of the screen on our computers.
Yeah, I was able to do that also.
I have a full screen.
Yeah.
I have nothing.
I think you ended your screen share.
Is that better?
Yes.
There you go.
Perfect.
Okay, so my problem is I have two screens.
She wiped me out. I have nothing on my screen. Damn it. Okay, there we go.
Let's pause to make sure everybody has a good
Right.
view here.
Does everybody have a picture of the screen? Purpose of hearing and findings?
Yes.
Yes.
I do not.
You do not.
Art, in the
I do
top
not.
right corner, in the top right corner, do you have any options like speaker view or view options?
I'm on a screen that says Google. Search Google or
Oh.
type in URL.
So if you go to the bottom, I think you might have got out of the Zoom.
I didn't touch it.
It probably did it automatic. If you just on the
Well, I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna take that personal.
Uh-huh.
You got it.
Okay.
Are you on now, Art?
I'm on now. Thank you, guys.
Okay, great. Thank you. Let us know if one of you disappears, something we need to make sure everybody's on. Okay, continue, Barb. Thank you.
Okay, so again, on May 20th, the Planning Commission recommends approval of the final development plan. It was 4 in favor, 1 opposed. Staff findings are as follows. The applicant has met and exceeded all of the submittal requirements for a final development plan. 2, the final development plan is consistent with the approved plan development zoning. And then finding 3 is the final development plan is the appropriate mechanism to document commitments that will need to be completed prior to the issuance of any building permit. So as council knows, there were a number of agreements that you have signed dating back to 2016. There were 2 annexation agreements that you approved. There was the public-private development agreement that you approved. There were access agreements that you approved and a recreational facilities ordinance that you approved. I think that's everything. Oh, and then the plan development zoning. Why isn't it? Okay, Jonathan, okay. Okay, is that right? So the review criteria for a final development plan is final development plan shall conform to all uses and development standards of the Idaho Springs Municipal Code, as well as the Idaho Springs standards and specifications for design and construction and any underlying plan development. So on page 3 of the staff report is a brief table that illustrates that the applicant has complied with all zoning requirements, including setbacks, parking, and height. In terms of the existing conditions, this is an aerial view, and you'll see the Argo Tunnel here, the water treatment plant, the Argo Mill. So that's where we are today. And I'm going to go through this in the rest of the mill. The gondola lower terminal will be right here. And then the same 36 parking spaces that exist today. So here again, aerial view. Here's the parking deck. So it's three decks. And the reason why the Argo team is calling it a deck is, unlike structured parking, you go in and come out at the same level. There's no internal ramping. This is sort of community space for food trucks, etc., gondola. So one of the things that's required by code is adequate parking and transportation improvements. So the municipal code requires a traffic and parking study to determine the parking needs. The parking study determined that there are 179 spaces required. Argo is providing 191 parking spaces. There will be 143 spaces in that parking deck. There are 12 employee parking spaces just behind the parking deck. And then there are 36 spaces in a surface lot that you saw in that previous slide. 10 of those spaces are going to be reserved for city and Clear Creek County residents and employees. So again, one of the purposes of this partnership was to ensure there was better access to Virginia Canyon Mountain Park. In terms of the transportation improvements that they're required to make is, and again, remember that things are pretty skinny between their property and the creek. So they're going to have to put a guardrail in. They're going to have to do some striping. There will be 12-foot travel lanes along Riverside from 23rd Avenue to the site. And then the right turn lane is deferred for 1 year. So, and at the end of this, we'll go through all of the conditions of approval, but the first one is after the first full year of operation, the city and the Argo will review transportation impacts and collectively determine if any adjustments are necessary. So the lower landing amenities are structured and surface parking for 191 cars. There will be food and beverage offerings from food trucks. The mill and mercantile will be upgraded. New pedestrian spaces are being added that integrate with the Greenway Trail. And again, increased access to the Virginia Canyon Mountain Park. The upper landing. So this is an aerial illustration of what this might look like. So the entire project, once you take out the mountain park, is about 33 acres. And of that 33 acres, the applicant is required to dedicate 10%. It's actually less, it's less than 33 acres, but we rounded up. So the city will be getting 2.76 acres used to meet the required open space dedication. And one of the conditions of approval, and this was prior to any public hearing, is there are 4 parcels sort of right below this illustration that are currently in the county. And in working with the county and the applicant, a condition of approval was to submit an application for annexation of those 4 parcels. That allows control of the access points and the access roads. So they did make an application, and so that will be coming before you probably with all of the hearings that noticing, you'll probably see that in about a month. But the upper landing consists of an observation deck, exploratory adventure artifact area, a trestle overlook, promenades, amphitheater, concessions, amenity areas, trails, and picnic area. And what's really important in this development is that the infrastructure, both water and sewer, is going to be a private system because that's out in the middle of nowhere, but Argo will be buying water from the city. In terms of the gondola requires execution of a 30-foot access and utility easement. And again, council approved an access easement for the gondola, but it was conceptual only. So before they can move to building permit, we want that surveyed and want to know exactly where that easement is. Lettner Apama of America will be constructing the gondola. And one of the things that's unusual about Colorado is the gondola construction is reviewed by the Colorado Passenger Tramway Safety Board. So they will be doing the review of the actual gondola. But the gondola is 1.2 miles, 1,300-foot vertical rise. It's high speed, and it's a 10-minute ride each way. So the actual cabin holds 8 people, so they can move 600 people per hour per direction. The gondola will be mountain bike ready and dog friendly. So condition of approval here is that the Colorado Geological Survey is reviewing the geologic hazards, and all review comments are to be addressed prior to building permit. And we just got that, the Colorado Geological Survey's comments on Thursday, and I sent them, Andy was copied, and I provided a copy to the applicant this afternoon. So finding 3, the final development plan is the appropriate mechanism to document commitments that must be completed prior to issuance of any building permit. So again, just to go over what these agreements were. So there were 2 annexation agreements that established the foundation for the development. So there was the first annexation agreement in 2016, and then in 2019. You then in 2018 signed a recreational facility planning MOU. You signed a public-private development agreement in November 2019. Conceptual access easements were recorded in 2019, and the PD zoning was approved in 2019. So what staff did was to go through all of those previous approvals and make sure that everything the applicant said they were going to do will get done with this approval. So the conditions of approval are as follows. City staff recommends approval of the final development plan by Planning Commission, now by City Council, subject to the following conditions that are beyond the scope of the final development plan, but for the most part shall be completed prior to the issuance of any building permit. The fifth finding and recommendation is that staff recommends that the following table be included as part of the record, and these commitments be tracked by city staff prior to any building activity. So in my staff report on pages 6 through 11, that is an Excel spreadsheet that Andy and I used sort of in negotiation with the applicant to ensure that everything they said they were going to do gets addressed. So with that, we have the following conditions, and all of these conditions are prior to issuance of any building permit. So the motion that we're suggesting is that the City Council approve the proposed Mighty Argo Final Development Plan Phase 1 with the following conditions. So 1, land dedication of 10% open space needs to be recorded by plat or boundary survey. Public access easements to the Virginia Canyon Mountain Park shall be surveyed and recorded. The water system design shall be reviewed by the city engineer. 4, the wastewater system design shall be reviewed by the city engineer and the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. Because remember, we're also dealing with the Superfund site. That's why Public Health and Environment is involved. The stormwater drainage plans and final drainage report for both the upper and lower development areas shall be reviewed by the city engineer. 6, the Colorado Geologic Survey comments and review of the geologic report from ground engineering shall be addressed. The water quality unit and utility separation concept require approval by city engineer and Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. A plat for the lower landing of Phase 1 as specified by, that should say city attorney, I'm sorry. Now, how do I go back?
And hasn't come up before.
Why did that go away? Sorry about this. A 30-foot wide gondola easement shall be included as part of the plat. Dedication of roads and utility easements as specified by the city attorney shall be included in the plat prior to issuance of a building permit. And then lastly, after 1 year of operation, after Phase 1, the city and Argo shall equally contribute to a new traffic study to assess the transportation impacts not to exceed $5,000. This will inform if and when a turn lane from westbound Colorado Boulevard will be required. This study shall be reviewed by the City and Planning Commission. The applicant agrees to fund turn lane if the study requires a turn lane. So if you have any questions for either Andy or myself, or even Fred, we're available.
I do. This is Art. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
we did. Yep.
Okay. Did I understand you to say that 600 people, actually be 1,200 people going in totally going up and down? So 600 going up and 600 coming down simultaneously? Did I understand that correctly?
That is, the gondola is designed, yes, for that kind of passenger load.
Okay. Is it assumed then that people will go up and come down like in the same loads, or will there be a variance in the loads for people who will stay at the top and enjoy or ride their bikes or whatever, causing a possibility that at one given time, there might be many more than 600 that want to come down, like later in the day? What I'm getting to is if there's 1,200 people just possibly going up and down in the cars, you know, the gondolas.
I think that. So I think the assumption is that people are going to go up and stay up and enjoy all of the amenities that are up above, and then come down. But I think that should also be asked of the applicant when we get to their presentation. They can address that.
Okay, well then my question is, has anybody taken into consideration how many vehicles we're going to be talking about that might be there at any given point that will overwhelm the 143 parking spaces as to where additional parking will be found? Is that a question for the applicant later as well?
Yeah, Art, I think that would be a question for the applicant.
Okay.
When they make their presentation. So
okay, all right.
Let's hold off, and that'll be coming up next.
But
okay.
Mayor Hillman, let me just address that specifically. One of the things that I think is really unusual about this project is that when you start looking at what are the transportation impacts going to be, part of the issue is that all the traffic engineers and civil engineers, they look at this book and they say, okay, well, this type of use will create, these many trips. A gondola is not in the handbook that they use. And so one of the things that I think is really important to look at one full year after operation is to say, what are the true impacts, and do we have enough parking? Do we not have enough parking? I mean, this whole COVID thing also obviously has thrown a huge, it's making prediction of how many people are going to park there. The other thing I would say, Art, is that from downtown to that parking structure is a 4 or 5 minute walk. It's 3 blocks.
Right.
If I put on my economic developer hat, which is how I first came to Idaho Springs many years ago, one of the things I would hope would happen is, so they're going to charge, I believe, $12 at the parking deck to park there.
Okay.
That is more expensive than parking downtown. So I would hope that the city would, and the applicant, as this moves forward, would look at, so let's just say I decided to go to Tommyknockers for lunch. Am I going to move my car if I want to go up to the gondola? Probably not. But again, I think you're going to need that first full year of operation to sort of figure out what is the real draw of this, and more importantly, I always call it's called dog bone planning, as you've got the 2 ends of the dog bone, just like they used to do in the old malls, and you would hope that people would move on foot between Minor Street, downtown area, in this new attraction. And you would hope, particularly given the trails that you have, that people would do that on foot.
Well, yeah, but that would create a problem for the downtown area, but
I think we should move past that with those comments, Barb, and ask any more of our council if they would like you to answer any other questions.
Okay.
Art, I understand what you're saying and I agree. We just need to move on.
Well, okay, I'll make my final point later.
Okay.
So Art, was one of your questions about load occupancy at the top of the gondola? Was that one of your questions?
Well, my question, no, well, I don't know what the maximum is up there. I'm sure there is a capacity, but I was just trying to relate that at any given time, there'll be a lot more than 1,200 people involved. I'm sure the applicant wants, is hopeful for that. I mean, that's how they're going to, make a profit. So I was just getting to the volume and the capacity.
And that traffic study, Barb, that's going to happen after a year, does that include the parking on the traffic study?
I think it should.
Yeah, I think so too.
Hi, Barb. This is Jim. Can you hear me?
I can.
Hi. You talked about the turn lane and stuff at the, that all that in the parking study might have been deferred for 1 year. But then you mentioned a partnership possibly of the cost of coming back onto the city. My question to you and maybe Team Argo is, if this is a concern today, why isn't it a concern a year from now? Obviously, they're projecting, lots of people and everything else, which I am too. I hope that, it works out awesome. But that being said, why would the parking study or a possible turn lane maybe or something like that, why would that fall back onto the city in any way, shape, or form for a private entity in their business and getting parking into them?
So let me, Fred, I may turn this over to you, but Argo is on the hook for that turn lane if it is needed. Fred, do you want to just talk about where you were in reviewing the traffic study?
Hello? Okay. Yeah, and just maybe some comments on the traffic study. We reviewed the traffic study provided by the applicant. It met all the criteria that's in the city code. And we reviewed it based on the results of their traffic study, and we agree with the, I guess, their recommendations and their conclusions. Based on the traffic study, all of the intersections that they studied currently operate at an acceptable level of service. And in the future, all of the intersections with the project will also operate at an acceptable level of service. The one thing that the traffic study did indicate was that a right turn was needed on Colorado based on CDOT criteria. And the right turn lane just barely tripped the trigger for the right turn lane. So, as part of discussions with the applicant and considering that the right turn lane would have impacts to Colorado, to the adjacent green space, and then also considering that the proposed use is not a standard use in the traffic engineer manual for trip generation, we went ahead and put that off for the 1 year that you've talked about. That right turn lane is required by the applicant, and they've agreed, after the 1 year, when they take a look at the trips that are actually generated by the project, that if it does trip that threshold, that they will construct the right turn lane. I think as far as the shared cost of the study, I think that gets beyond what we reviewed for the traffic study, and that may be more of the cooperation between the city and the applicant for the project.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess I don't understand that. I own a business on Colorado Boulevard too, and I feel that today or the future, is verbatim quote from you, whether it was today or a year from now, that if I had that much business into my place, that would fall onto me. I'm sorry, and please don't seem that I'm being rude by any means, but isn't that the applicant's problem, for lack of better words, I guess, Fred?
And Fred, I think what Jim is alluding to is development paying its own way. And why is the city going to be on the hook to help fund that traffic study in a year?
So one, this was staff's thinking on this. One, the applicant will be required, if it's warranted, to build that turn lane. That is not on the city. So the mayor's absolutely right. You're absolutely right. It is the responsibility of the applicant. I guess that if you read the public-private partnership agreement and some of the preceding discussions, with a development like this, transportation and parking are going to need to be looked at. And I don't think they should be looked at in isolation of just this development. And the other thing that I thought was really important for the city, rather than have us use the applicant's engineer that did the traffic study, is that it's in the city's best interest to hire a transportation engineer that they choose to take a fresh look at things and see where you're at.
And that's taken very respectably, Barb. But there again, you just said we're leaving the city and the taxpayers once again to make the decision on ourselves, on behalf of ourselves, for private enterprise. If there needs to be a traffic study and there needs to be a turn lane, then it just simply should say then the applicant will take care of this today, in the future, a year, 5 years from now. I believe. Am I incorrect in that?
I think that's a policy decision on the part of city council. I think that's
Thank you.
Within your purview.
May I ask Fred one quick question, because he seems to be an expert on the traffic study? Fred, what, on this traffic study, their study was done on an average daily trips. It was not done based on seasonal influx of cars. Is that correct?
It was done on average daily. And then they took the numbers that they got from their traffic counts and did a seasonal adjustment that is typically done by CDOT to adjust for seasonal conditions. So it was not it was not counted during peak season, but there was an adjustment factor, and I believe it was 30% to account for seasonal adjustment.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I have a couple questions. Does this require a SHPA report? Barb, can you hear me?
Yeah, no, there was, the applicant got a very wonderful letter from History Colorado in support of the project. But as I understand it, the project is, the property is not listed on the National Register of Historic Places. Is that correct? It is.
It is listed.
Okay.
Yes, it is listed on the National Registry.
Okay.
So does that require a SHPA report?
we got a letter from them in support.
Okay, just making sure. We're all property owners are notified, or is that not required here? I don't know.
Are you talking about, John, are you talking about the mailings for the property owners within 300 feet
Right.
of the public hearing? Yes,
Right.
all that was done properly. Absolutely.
Okay.
And, and then Mayor, one other thing, the other thing is that they're required to post a sign. And just to be on the safe side, a sign was posted the lower landing area as well as the upper landing area, in case any of you went for a hike.
All right, thanks for that, Barb.
Are we gonna get a report from the fire department, fire authority requiring a cistern or something up top for fire protection?
Fred,
No?
I'll let you answer that one.
The fire department has reviewed, at least they've reviewed the access and the circulation, and they've approved that. There will be a water supply provided at the top, at the upper gondola. And we haven't seen detailed plans of that yet. So the fire department has not reviewed that. That would come building permit.
Is Upper Creek Watershed Association on the referral list?
I believe they were.
Okay, just
So, and there's a packet that we posted of all of the referral comments sort of put together, so it would be easy for you to access, but it was
Yeah,
not in
well,
your packet.
yeah, Aqua hasn't seen anything yet, so just curious.
Okay.
And are we gonna be able to work with JVA? I guess I'm asking the mayor and council and the counselor if I can work with JVA on some of the wastewater plans, because I saw stuff that referenced putting a sand oil trap in the parking garage and then discharging into this sanitary sewer, which is illegal. So I'd like to be able to review some of that.
I don't think there's any problem for you to be able to review those documents, John.
Right, on JVA side,
unless,
yeah.
Unless, Carmen, I don't think that would be improprietary for you to be able to review those documents and, with your expertise and that, it's nice to have somebody like that with something new happening, just like our new plant, with some knowledge about that. So absolutely.
So John, the other thing is that if you look at the conditions closely, we feel that it's really important for JVA to review that whole separator by the parking garage is a really different way of approaching things. And JVA understands that it's different. So yes, we're counting on JVA to take a really quick, a really solid look at all of that stuff prior to issuing any building permit. And so I'm sure they'll seek your advice as needed.
And you did a good job covering that in your report. Thank you.
And Mayor and Councilman Curtis, just briefly, Kevin Tone, the president of JVA, is on the call also. He's I would say an expert in, wastewater treatment and those sorts of issues. And he'll be looking at those as they come in for detailed review.
All right. Thanks, Fred. Thanks for being on with us, Kevin.
And yes, John, we'll be happy to follow up with you as well as John Bordoni on anything as we get into a more detailed.
Now, I respect Martin and JBA. Not that I know everything. You guys probably know more, so I just like to look at it.
Okay. Any other council would like to ask questions to staff, to Barb, or to Andy, or any of our JVA engineers? All right, we will continue with our public hearing. I believe now Travis Cook is going to give a presentation. Are you ready, Travis?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. And I'm sure everyone's shocked, but Mary Jane is going to spend just a minute teeing it off, and then I'm going to give a quick synopsis of the project and then try to address some of the questions up front. So,
Yeah. Thank you all for, and Travis is going to say this also. Thank you all for agreeing to do this virtually. As you know, we were scheduled for an April 1st Planning Commission meeting, and we just appreciate you in this time of uncertainty doing this virtually. We really appreciate it. And I just want to tell you, it's been a 4+ year labor of love for the ownership and the team together. You know, you've got some local people that passionately care about the city of Idaho Springs and passionately care about the preservation and the adaptive reuse of the Argo Mill project. 4 years ago, I don't think Bob and Jan and Dana and all the other people that we spoke to ever thought that we would be here. But I think what we've come up with in the last 4 years is going to be amazing. It'll be the perfect, well, nothing's perfect, but it'll be the great collaboration, the convergence of outdoor recreation and heritage tourism. We've worked so hard on this that I think you'll be very, very happy with what we end up here. We have an incredible team of mostly Coloradans, and I would have to say half of them are gold diggers, graduated from Clear Creek. And Travis Cook, our design director, grew up here in Clear Creek County and graduated from Clear Creek High School. And Brian McFarland, our other team member who is on the Zoom call tonight, is our development director and very versed in doing major projects around the country. And we have Craig McPhee, our traffic engineer, our traffic and parking engineer, as we knew this would be a delicate discussion tonight. So please feel free. We have way more information that is being presented tonight. And I just want you to know that we have done our due diligence in every way possible that we could think of and trying to provide the best project for the city. So we look forward to the rest of the evening. Go for it, Travis.
thanks, Mary Jane. And thank you, Barb, for helping get us through this and for the very clear, concise presentation. Appreciate that. And Mr. Mayor and Councilman, really appreciate, again, to echo Mary Jane's sentiment. We know that this is not easy. It's a technological leap, but we just commend you as a city, as a municipality, for making it happen, keeping the economy going where it can. And, you know, it's just, you really guys are setting a standard for how other small towns can move the ball forward and not be completely paralyzed by the situation we're in right now. So thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. And as Mary Jane said, I'm grew up in Evergreen in Clear Creek County, up 103, and graduated in 1999 from CCHS, proud gold digger. And I care deeply about Idaho Springs. I've got a background in architecture, and when Mary Jane and the team were getting into Argo, I rushed back, and I just couldn't wait to get involved because it's a project and it's a community that I care about. And I just have to say, in all seriousness, I just wouldn't be sitting here if that wasn't the case. I'm in it because I think it can be a meaningful project for the community. Mary Jane also already mentioned the team, so I'll just echo that. We've really formed a really amazing team, as local as possible in every sense, and we're just really excited for the next phase. So I think I can share my screen here. See if this works for everyone. Not that.
It was there.
It was?
For a second.
What are you guys seeing right now? A calculator?
The Argo. Seeing the Argo.
Oh, you are? Good, good. Wonderful.
Phase 1.
Great. Thank you, guys. I'm seeing something different, so we'll see how this goes. So Barb covered this pretty well. and pretty thoroughly. But as Mary Jane mentioned, you know, we've been working on this for 4 years, and we've been working really closely with the city for a good chunk of that. So here we are submitting our final development plan, which originally was submitted in January of this year. We were scheduled for hearings in April, and we really appreciate that we're now being heard in May, despite everything. Again, just amazing, amazing work from the city. But I also want to say when it comes to some of the questions, which I really appreciate and love, just because we get our final development plan voted on today doesn't mean that we have free reign. There are extreme processes with the state health, CDPHE, with the city, with the county, permitting, safe built review. So a lot of the detail that I think we're going to be discussing today is really going to be delved into and analyzed and critically reviewed moving forward. So, you know, everybody knows the Argo. Everybody sitting at the Zoom call has some memory of the Argo. It's been a part of their life and their upbringing. And it really is just a gem of history that we can all be proud of. And since day one, the Team Argo has really had a vision of opening this space back up to visitors and to the community in a whole new and exciting way. So we've been working very diligently under some design principles. First and foremost, the historic presence of that mill and that structure and what it means to the town and to the region is never going to be overlooked or minimized in any way. And there are others as well. So when we're looking for ways to approach an adaptive reuse project that adds programming, we're not needing to look very far for inspiration. A lot of early skeptics were worried that we may be turning Idaho Springs into Vail or Aspen, and that could not be farther from the truth. We really appreciate and love our gritty Clear Creek County history and our ethic, and we're really taking that as inspiration when we're building a new physical environment. So the site itself, most of you have seen some form of this diagram or another. It really is a way that we feel that we can help connect the community to some of their really amazing assets, outdoor recreational assets. So the Argo Mill property really is, and we see it as the gateway to your park, to Virginia Canyon Mountain Park. You were granting access through the Argo property and into the park, and we're happy to do that and to link the community to the park. Also, the Clear Creek Greenway Trail, we now have a very walkable town, and it's going to be a walkable county eventually. And we really sit at the nexus between that great public amenity of the Greenway Trail and also the Virginia Canyon Mountain Park. So not only are we stitching together these great recreational assets, but we're doing it on this amazing historic site, and we're doing it in a way that actually increases the amount of public space and amenities for the town. So just to be clear, when we're talking about phase one and phasing, you know, this team, this Argo team, and we all know Mary Jane and we know Bob and Jan, and they are dreamers and thinkers and they're visionaries. And so of course there are more visions to be had at this project. But for now, we really feel that this phase, which includes the Mighty Argo cable car, everything you see up top, and what you see in the renderings for the lower terminal, in addition to mill and tunnel improvements, event space, and the tours and mercantile, we're really focused on that phase, and it can really be a standalone and will be a standalone project unto itself. So for the Mighty Argo cable car, this gets a little bit into just the aesthetic that's driving us. You know, this gondola terminal, you kind of get what you get when you build a gondola these days. It's regulated by the Tramway Board, a state agency, and so there are limitations on what you can do architecturally and formally. But we really see this thing existing on this site and really recalling some of this amazing old industrial machinery and these old historic aerial tramways that would transport miners and ore and visitors sometimes up and down the mountainside. So Barb did a really good recap of the 1.2 mile, 1,300 feet, a 10-minute ride. I just wanted to mention one thing, and it was in response to a question from Art about the 600 people per hour per direction. I know some people have been throwing around 1,200 cars an hour rolling through town getting onto the Argo. Well, that's just not true. It's just kind of a simplified number that you can throw out. So when we say 600 people per hour per direction, that is just a unit of measurement on the capacity of a gondola. But after talking to the manufacturers, to other scenic gondola operators, it's really about 2/3 of that. At the busiest day, it's about 2/3 of that. So we're talking about 400 people per hour per direction. And when you're talking about people arriving on the site, you're only talking about there's an average of 2.75 visitors in each car that come through Idaho Springs. So you're talking about less than 150 cars per hour going through town. So just to put that into perspective, Bojo's Pizza does 420,000 people a year. That's about what we're projecting we will do when we have our first full year of operation. Same as Bojo's. It's another volume of Bojo's on the east end of town. Now, Bojo's and all the other businesses on Minor Street occupy, and excluding the Minor Street parking, that the parking lot behind Minor Street has 190 plus or minus stalls. So we're actually providing the same amount of parking on our site that entire back lot that serves Minor Street serves. So that's just a little bit of a put things into perspective there. So getting back to, again, traffic and parking, the parking deck itself, of course, it's sitting next to a nationally registered historic landmark, and we've been working with the State Historic Society. They've reviewed our plans. There's I don't know how many people here remember the 65-foot tall pile of cribbing that existed. You can see in the middle left image here, the upper left of the images. So when we started to conceive of this parking deck, we really wanted to pay homage to some of those historic structures that existed on the site. So the State Historic Society is really excited about adaptive reuse on the Argo site, and they're excited about our solution for parking on site. Now, Barb did mention the upper landing and some of the amenities there, but just to get at the root of where our thinking has been from the very beginning, it's really about creating public space, creating amenities that the citizens can use. And of course, there's an operation, a for-profit business entity that's related to that, but that won't stop anybody from Idaho Springs hiking up to the upper landing and enjoying the decks and enjoying the amphitheater, and may or may not enjoy a beer or a glass of wine or a cup of coffee. So really, this is a civic space that we're creating for the community. And we do think that it can be a win-win there. And again, just kind of to hit on the spirit that I believe everybody that lives in this town and loves this town has as their legacy, is just this spirit of the West, of the gold rush and the milling and mining and the explorers and prospectors that settled here. And we feel like taking a bold step and building a kind of project that benefits the community, but also stands on its own economically, is a legacy from that spirit that we all came from. So some of the community benefits, again, of course, with any development project, there are going to be, there are going to be impacts, but I have studied this for years now, and I believe vehemently at the bottom of my heart that there are far, far more benefits than impacts when it comes to this particular project. First and foremost, we want all the residents of Idaho Springs to ride for free, to take ownership and stewardship of this gondola and the park and the project, and all ages and abilities. So whether it's the 90-year-old couple who haven't been on a hike in 20 years or the newborn in a stroller, everybody can ride the gondola and get up to the top and be in the mountains right out of town. Again, with larger Clear Creek residents, We want to, make sure that they also feel a sense of stewardship and ownership, and we'll have discounts there. Of course, I already mentioned access. There's revenue sharing proposed to allow the city to construct, maintain trails, parking infrastructure related to Virginia Canyon Mountain Park. I do want to just point out that the revenue sharing is different than tax revenue. So there's a huge sales tax revenue and property tax revenue or sales tax revenue boon, but the revenue sharing is an offer outside of the traditional tax structure. So those are two separate revenue streams that the city is looking at enjoying and benefiting from. So there are a few more, but I'm going to keep it rather quickly. So I'm going to just end there. And Mr. Mayor, would you like me to go into some of the questions, or should they be restated and readdressed?
That's what I'd like to do. Well, so we're going to follow our, now we have the applicant. Do we have anybody on the line, or have we had any calls, John, for public comment?
We have two. Let me just let them in really quickly. Asta Keen is our first one here.
Asta, you're going to be public testimony number one. Go right ahead, please.
All right. Hi, guys.
Hold on. I think Diane needs to swear you in first.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Raise your right hand. We can't see you.
Well, I promise I'm doing it. I can't hear Diane if she's talking. I'm sorry.
Yes. Diane?
Okay.
Yeah, now you're muted, Diane. Now you should be able to talk.
I'm trying to reach Carmen.
Yep.
Carmen? Do we?
Yep.
Do we need to swear in virtually?
Yeah, why not?
That would be a good idea. Yeah.
She's in the chambers. Should I go in there?
You can do it. You can do it virtually, Diane.
Okay. Asta, raise your right hand.
Yeah.
You got it.
Swear the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Good deal.
Okay. Okay, so I can go. Okay, so I just wanted to make some comments. I guess I'm a little less official. I didn't realize I was going to be swearing, but that doesn't matter. I just wanted to say that I support this 100%. I love the idea of this development. I love it for our town. I love the repurposing kind of the area over there of the Argo. I love the idea that we can access it as a community. I'm raising my kids here. I own a business in town, and I'm a gold digger as well. And I just think that this brings so much to our community. It's another place for us, to go get together. I love so many aspects of this. The one thing I was going to say too is we own the Vintage Moose, my husband and I, and we get people that come in from all over the world, just like everybody in town does. And the parking issue, if I got this right, I think Barb mentioned that they were talking about charging $12 a spot at the Argo. To me, that's pennies. I mean, I get people that come in and park in a yellow zone, and they ask me what the ticket is, and I'm like, it's $20. They're like, oh, that's cheaper than parking in Chicago. So to me, that doesn't seem like an issue, but I mean, that's something to do with the city and the Argo developers. But I love that it's a partnership between the city and the developers. I think that's amazing that they're working together to provide this for us, for people that live in the town, in the community, and also tourists. I think it's going to be amazing. So that's it. Thank you, guys.
Hey, thank you, Asta, for your comments. We have somebody else that would like to make comments, John?
Kelly.
Kelly, if you raise your right hand.
I am doing that now.
Do you swear the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay. First, thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to speak to you tonight, even in this very weird format. I live just outside of Idaho Springs. I am a Idaho Springs native and a very proud Clear Creek High School graduate. And tonight I just want to share some of my thoughts in support of the Argo Gondola project. In my mind, I see this project as a win on multiple accounts. The first, I believe this project is an incredible bridge between our past and our future. I believe it embraces our mining heritage and showcases our strong and growing outdoor recreation economy, which I believe will prove itself to be one of the most resilient of the economies and the industries as we battle our way back from the harsh reality COVID-19 has brought to us. I believe the gondola could be the beginning of a true economic driver and powerhouse in Idaho Springs and in our county. There's also a very unique synergy between this project and one the school district has been working on. The upcoming Homegrown Talent Initiative project and Project Bike Tech specifically. These two things combined could prove to be a really incredible opportunity for our kids to get internships and relevant career experience right here at home in the outdoor recreation industry. I know that there's concern about the increase in traffic and tourism and the use of our open space, but I believe that the Argo team has gone through proper due diligence, and I also believe that there are very many proud locals who will continue to preserve and protect our wild spaces. Tonight, can you still hear me? Tonight, I was driving back into the county on I-70, and I noticed the Welcome to Clear Creek County sign. Printed on that sign is the motto for our county, where the Old West meets new adventure. I can't think of a better project that will showcase exactly that. So tonight I would encourage you to vote for the Argo Gondola project and for all of the future opportunities that come with it. Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly, for the comments. John, do we have anybody else on the call or that has called in to us?
No.
All right, John says no. I would kind of like to, is this where we can open up questions from council for some of the other questions that might need to be asked from the developers and the applicants? I have one, something that I didn't see in the traffic study or anything else is about East Riverside. How are we going to control the traffic trying to go out of the east end of town, where it's very narrow, right through an area that is very, for the most part, very quiet? And how do we prevent not disturbing and making their quality of life miserable?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Is that okay, Mary Jane? I'm going to take it.
Yeah, please do it.
So great question. And we've been working with our traffic engineer and with our design team to come up with, number one, a physical signage and wayfinding strategy that will deter visitors from driving down East Riverside Drive past the townhomes and across Gilson Bridge. So when you come into town at the Gilson side, for example, there are several of these signs based on areas that we are trying to encourage and discourage vehicular traffic. An Argo straight ahead sign, and then also, you know, through the area of Riverside Drive to the west, similarly directing traffic to the Argo onto Colorado Boulevard and across 23rd Street. Similarly, when people are exiting the parking deck or the surface parking, we will have signage that will be directing them back across 23rd. And then another suggestion I have for several areas of the town is you can actually request with Google Maps and Apple Maps to get certain preferred routes or routes that you don't want people to drive on to actually get removed from the route making algorithm there. So the Argo are planning on tackling that through an extensive and robust wayfinding and signage plan.
And the traffic engineer believes that these wayfinding signs would and work by deterring the traffic and visitors from going those ways and making that their access point?
Hey, Travis, could we get, hey, Craig, answering that for a minute? Craig?
Yep. Yeah. So generally, you know, it's human behavior. So you're trying to influence human behavior with guide signs, and generally, yes, they are very, especially for tourist type attractions like this, they are very helpful in keeping people on the route that you want them to be on. The most direct route from the freeways is going to be to use 23rd. So anyone that would be traveling across Gilson, maybe a local, maybe someone who's a little bit lost, or something like that. We can also add some other local traffic only signs in the Gilson area. Although I know that's also access for the skate park over there. But things like that can really help in ensuring that the vehicular traffic goes the direction that you want them to.
So I just wanted to ask Craig and Mayor and Council that we actually, our original plan was to park the entire site with cars. And we finally landed on, thanks to Travis and our design team, that would be very confusing as far as people landing on the site. That hence the idea of the parking deck on the far west end, which is a very clear sign where you park, where you go to. There's no confusion, and we're not sending cars from each end of the site all over the site.
So the guardrail on the road only extends to the access to the property. What about the rest of the way down where it gets narrow? Why wouldn't we want to be carrying that all the way to the east end?
Sure, Mr. Mayor, and I can refer to Craig if you'd like to answer it. But the guardrail was proposed because there is it gets a little tight between 23rd and the Argo property, and the amount of the volume of traffic that would be turning right on off of the 23rd Street Bridge onto Riverside Drive would benefit from a safety perspective from a guardrail along Clear Creek during that stretch. Now, once you pass the entrance to the parking deck, the amount of traffic actually drops off to the point where you're no longer as concerned about needing a guardrail. However, and also there was some intent when the Greenway and Riverside Drive was paved, and we have a larger vision as part of our design principle of potentially, creating a stronger connection to the river there and to Clear Creek in front of the Argo property. So we felt that it wasn't necessarily it wasn't a recommendation from our engineer or from the city engineer for that matter to install a guardrail along that stretch of Riverside Drive. And likewise, the tight stretch down on East Riverside Drive was not experiencing, from an engineering point of view, the increased traffic that would necessitate a guardrail there.
Okay, and I guess my concern with that is when we built the Greenway, this was for the trail users to enjoy the spirit of the Greenway next to the river. And I wouldn't want to see a capacity of cars that experience is not as good as it is today without the gondola in there. And I'm just
absolutely
want to make sure that that's tied in a good way, that the experience of the Argo and the experience of the Greenway remains attractive for both parties.
Yeah, and absolutely. And Mr. Mayor, so one of the key strategies that led to locating the parking deck there is you have 143 parking spaces in the deck. That's your vast majority of traffic coming to the Argo. They are all turned off of Riverside Drive and parked before the Greenway comes across the pedestrian bridge in front of the Argo. So the stretch of the Greenway in front of the Argo from the pedestrian bridge down has very minimal traffic added traffic impacts because the vast majority of them are already going to be parked in the deck.
Okay. Thanks for that. Other council members want to weigh in and ask questions while I look at my my highlights of some other questions I might have?
Yeah, I'd like to ask Travis, we talked about parking and you talked about 2/3 of the capacity would be tops that you thought. I still would like to hear, just for conversation's sake, when the capacity is overwhelmed at the Argo mines, where do you think you're going to put the additional cars? Where are you going to park them? I'd just like to know what your alternative is for the people who still want to go to the Argo mines. The parking might be full, so they're going to look for parking somewhere else and walk across or whatever. Where's that parking going to exist?
Sure, that's a great question, Art.
So
So
don't tell me it's a great question. Just please, you say that every time. It's not a great question. It's just a solid question.
all right, fine. So that's a great question.
Yeah.
And let me just explain what the reality is of how we've been studying this. So we have one of the international experts on scenic gondolas who has looked at the local regional economy and come up with some a range of potential demand. That's the first thing you do when you start figuring out, trying to figure out how many people are going to come to the site. So then we use that as a starting point, and then started studying based on our traffic study, based on CDOT numbers for seasonal adjustments, how many parking spaces we would need based on market demand. And then we sought to accommodate that parking demand on the site. Now, to answer your question, when there are additional people beyond what our market demand has estimated and what our parking study has estimated that we need for capacity, there are, Mary Jane, help me with the numbers here. There are pretty ample parking spaces along.
I actually, there's
ahead.
370 spaces within a half-mile walk. But the other thing that we have not actually addressed, Travis, is that public plaza area in times of festivals or something can be turned into parking.
Yeah, we do. We have overflow capacity in the public space. And then another thing that I think Planning Commission, I know, is really, really keen on doing, and the city staff as well, is looking for a holistic solution to some of these high volume parking issues. So whether that's looking at acquiring some overflow lots and having a linear feeder shuttle that allows people to have a more pedestrian and a less car-centric experience of the town, it's certainly something that, as the Argo, we're going to be in full support of and helping with to solve this problem, which is, essentially a problem that not only the city has, but the business owners in the city have as well. So we're not building this parking capacity and saying we're done. We realize that this is an evolving issue, and it's not something that the Argo can solve on its own, and it's not something that the city can solve without the collaboration of the local businesses.
And I'd like to add.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you.
You're
And I don't know if anybody sent you our scenic gondola market feasibility study, but we believe we're well over parked for this. And the normal turn on the parking structure for every scenic gondola in the country is 1.5 to 2.5 hours. So we're going to have 3 to 5 turns per day on busy days.
Hope you're right. Travis, we had a meeting, the city council retreat, a couple months ago, guys. And one of the issues we brought up as a group is we were looking for additional parking just to handle the people that are coming now, the tourists, at the current volume. We were unable at that time to come up with any additional parking. Am I right, Mayor? Any areas? So we didn't solve that issue. I just think that I like to think in capacities. He made a great presentation, all that. I just think it's something that really needs to be addressed as quick as possible, because we only have so much land here, no matter how you say it, no matter how many cars you turn and all that other stuff. We reached our capacity last summer and the summer before with parking many, many days. And I hope that the Argo Mine is very successful and brings in a lot of new people. But if they can't find parking, they're going to drive out the other side of town, and that benefits no one.
I wholeheartedly agree, Art, and that is why the parking issue is something that we're very aware of, very sensitive to, and we will be working on those satellite parking solutions.
When you find it, let us know, because we were unable to find it.
So Art, did you read the ULI TAP, the Technical Advisory Panel study that they did almost 2 years ago now, that shows all the public-private partnership potentials for the city?
No, I did not.
That's a really good, it's a very good document that the Urban Land Institute, with all their experts, came into town and studied our parking and transportation. And we've been dealing with that with the city for a couple years now. And I think it's a really good document for what we want to see happen in the future.
I hope you're right.
Okay.
One other quick comment on that. Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Mayor. We are looking at working with Interstate Parking, which is the company that the city has commissioned or hired, I guess, to do some parking management. One of the benefits of the technology that they have when it comes to a private site is to really use behavioral technology to increase turns. For example, you could have a stepped rate. So if you're targeting, even on a busy day, or if you're targeting a certain number of turns that will allow your capacity to keep up, you can actually target your fee structure to do that. So that's just one tool that we would have in our kit to kind of ameliorate some of the overflow parking stress onto the city.
So Travis and Mike and council, we've got our third-party traffic engineer here, and he is willing to give us the methodology wherein he determined the parking demand. And Art, giving your detailed questions, would that be worthwhile for you?
It would. I maybe not want to take time of the council this evening. Maybe he and I could have a conversation offline, unless you think it would benefit everyone.
So Arthur, Art, we will be making a vote on this. So if this is information that you would like prior to a vote, I recommend that we.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, no, thank you, Mayor. I would like.
Yeah, we're in no hurry.
Okay.
I told everybody 5 hours, so we're still well under that. So.
Okay.
All right.
And Craig, will you go ahead and he wrestled with this. He's our third party parking and traffic management study. So please, Craig, go ahead.
Yeah. So again, I don't know if I introduced myself before, but my name is Craig McPhee. I'm a professional engineer specializing in traffic operations, parking operations. I've been doing this for over 20 years, doing traffic engineering, and I work with Martin Engineering. So this is definitely an unusual use. And like Fred alluded to earlier, there's no specific book that we can look up a value for this specific land use. And so when that type of case presents itself, which is not totally uncommon, we need to derive our estimates from other sources. For this, there was a market feasibility report that was conducted that estimated the Argo gondola would generate about 400 or 500,000 visitors per year.
Right.
We chose the upper end of that to do our traffic and parking study. So the 500,000 people per year, we need to take that and try to put it into how many vehicles are going to visit the site on a single day and what's kind of the peak day, not necessarily like the absolute like top 5 days out of the year, but like a seasonal peak. So we took that 5,000 trips per day and, you divide it by 365 days a year, and you're not going to have that equivalent amount every single day because you're going to have seasonal fluctuations. And then also you'll have more on a Saturday than you would on a Tuesday. So we looked at CDOT. CDOT has some continuous counting stations along the I-70 corridor. One of them is pretty close to Idaho Springs at the tunnels. So we looked at that data to determine seasonal and daily variations in traffic. And this is, it can be local traffic, it can be intrastate traffic, but it's largely influenced on the tourist traffic, the Denverites and others that travel to the mountains for their activities, the mountain activities, which the Argo would qualify as one of those. So that's how we kind of broke it down from the 5,000 trips per day, and we applied these seasonal and daily factors to get it to a seasonal, like a summer Saturday. This is how many people would come to the Argo on a Saturday during the summer. And then from there, we want to break the number of people down into how many cars is it going to be.
Right.
Well, the typical occupancy of a vehicle on I-70 and in the Idaho Springs area for these type of activities is about 2.75 people per vehicle. So we divide the number of people we were expected per day by the 2.75. There we have the number of vehicles. So every vehicle enters and every vehicle exits. So that every vehicle that comes to the site creates 2 trips, one entering, one exiting. So we estimated that was, when we went through all those calculations, a little under 600 vehicles per day on a Saturday would access this site, enter and exit. So about 1,200 trips per day. From there, we can estimate based on the daily fluctuation that we have, when those peak times would occur. So that's what we used for the intersection analysis when we're looking at the peak hour of the intersections and doing capacity analysis. For the parking, it's a little bit different. So the parking, we have people coming, depending on how long they stay, that's going to determine how long that car is sitting there and how much turnover you're going to have throughout the day. And so for that, we again looked at help me out here, the studies that for other gondolas for visitation duration, and those were 1.5 to 2 hours. The longer someone stays there, the more impact that's going to have on the overall parking demand, right? So if someone stays there for 30 minutes, it's a real quick turnover. If someone stays there for 2 hours, that's a much longer turnover, potentially a higher overall parking demand. So again, we went to the higher average that we are estimating of 2 hours per vehicle coming, staying, and then 2 hours later leaving. So with that daily distribution, we're able to estimate when people are going to arrive throughout the day, and then 2 hours later they leave. So from that, there's a table within the traffic study. I think it's table 11 on page 40 of the traffic study. So that shows kind of your breakdown of when those vehicles are arriving throughout the day, and then 2 hours later when they are leaving. So that shows generally your demand at any given hour throughout the day. And so our peak demand was more in the afternoon, and we estimated that to be around 179 vehicles. So that's on a Saturday in the summer, assuming 500,000, visitors per year, all these kind of higher end conservative assumptions. Now, you know, nothing's perfect in a traffic world and in traffic studies. So, you know, we have a lot of assumptions that go into this, and that's why we try to be conservative on those kind of things, so that we're more likely to overestimate than underestimate. And that's also why for the turn lane that we determined was kind of borderline for being required, that's why the city and the applicant have come to an agreement to evaluate a year later, because we're so close on that threshold that, you know, we don't want to disturb that green space unless that turn lane is really needed. So a year after the project is up and running, then we would go out and do another study to confirm all the assumptions of this study.
I have one more question. You say that there's counters that count the vehicles coming into the tunnel. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Have you ever looked at the cameras on a Saturday and a Friday night and see the traffic backed up down to Evergreen for 5 to 6 hours?
Yes.
Have you taken that? Yeah. Okay.
I
And
have.
you're just going to add to that with your volume, whatever the number is, you're going to add to that, correct?
From I-70?
Yeah.
Well, so one of the things with this project is it's going to rely quite a bit on passerby traffic on I-70. So that 600 vehicles in a day, a large portion of that may be traffic that's already on I-70 and just diverting off to come visit this site, come visit Idaho Springs, spend time in Idaho Springs.
Well, but if you're going to bring more customers, you're definitely going to bring more cars and definitely going to make those lines longer. That's my assumption.
On I-70, there is that potential.
Yeah, but well,
that level was in our scope. We looked at local intersections within the city.
Right.
That was the scope.
Okay. Well, thank you. You've been very informative. I appreciate it.
Craig, since we have you on, I had the same concerns that Art had about the number of parking spaces. And I probably spent an unhealthy amount of time with your study. It was exhaustive, but I'm glad you took the higher end, because I checked your math, and the higher end, the 179, and I will tell you that your peak you stated was between 2 and 3 in the afternoon. And I like I said, I had the same concerns. I was checking that with my calculator to see how you arrived at 179, and the math does work out. But my question is about that turn lane, that right turn lane. My assumption is we're waiting a year, because when the operation first starts, you may not hit that upper number. But as this site matures and say word gets out, you may have a better chance of hitting the upper number. And so it basically it's protecting our end as a city, where it's no cost to us if you have to put that in a year later, but we get a more accurate count. Do I understand that correctly?
Yeah, that's correct. So, the 400 to 500,000 visitors per year is an estimate. If it far exceeds that, or if it falls, quite a bit short of that, that's the turn lane was kind of on the teetering point there. I do want to note that the right turn lane, so we're talking about the intersection of 23rd Avenue and Colorado.
Exactly. Yes.
So that right turn lane is only required based on CDOT criteria. It's not added to improve capacity of the intersection. The intersection operates at an acceptable level of service, whether that turn lane is there or not. The main purpose of the turn lane is to improve safety. When you have a high volume of right turning traffic that may impede through traffic, you have a higher potential for rear end collisions and things like that. So once you reach a certain level, that's why CDOT has that threshold. That threshold's 50. We were projecting it to be around 60 to 65, I think, in the peak hours. So that's why we were just marginally estimated to be above that, and why we felt that it was prudent to wait.
And I just want to clarify, Chuck and Craig, just for a minute, that, you know, we just completed Courtney Riley Cooper Park, Colorado Boulevard was just completed, and we have agreed to build the turn lane if it's necessary. But what we didn't want to do is already cut into that new park that we've just built.
Yeah,
So
she
it
did
just,
have to.
with JVA and everyone, we said, let's see if we need it. And this will be determined after one full year of operation, not from when we start construction, but one full year of operation that says, yes, we need to do this.
Okay.
So my question would be, if we're teetering on the threshold, wouldn't it make sense to go ahead and do it at this time? While the construction's going on, so you wouldn't interrupt. You know, once you get going a year from now, why would you want to do construction on that corner right there and disrupt? Did we do a turn ratio for trucks to be able to get in there without running over the curb? And would that turn lane help that any? I mean, I'm thinking kind of the opposite, Mary Jane, of, you know, trying to do it, you know, if we're teetering that close, I know it's an expense to the project, but, you know, if the construction's going on, I like to get it, as you know, we like to get it done and not have to come back and do that a year, we're looking, what, a year of construction, and then come back a year later and then do the study. And would it make more sense to try to engineer that now and go ahead and implement that with the project?
Not if we don't come up with a better solution in the meantime. I mean, we're willing to do it.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I think, and oh, Brian, were you gonna jump in on this?
No, I just a comment on the truck turning template. So Mayor, as you know, I mean, during construction of Riverside, all those asphalt trucks and concrete trucks were accessing over 23rd Street Bridge, right? So I don't think there's going to be an issue as far as the truck access goes on the Riverside during our construction. But I understand your point about, you know, just ripping off the Band-Aid now. We just didn't want to get in there and disrupt the park after it was recently completed, as Mary Jane said.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, there were another couple of just more qualitative factors there too. It is that the right turn to 23rd Street Bridge is pretty close to where Riverside, or where Minor Street comes in and intersects, and there's a fairly large curve there. The main, from my understanding, the trigger point was also based on a speed that people on Colorado Boulevard would be traveling, and that speed around that curve and past that intersection was going to be reduced fairly substantially anyway, just based on the nature of the alignment. So that again was a little bit of a threshold reduction in our mind. But I see where you're coming from. So.
Okay. I had another question on your executive summary, number 9. It's talking about some site that people are having to creep out into the road to see around. That the city of Idaho Springs should further evaluate this site obstruction, and it has to do with the line of sight southbound approach when they're stopped at the stop bar. Is this, so the suggestion for the city to take a look at that, and this is probably a traffic engineer question, is that suggested because the increase of traffic? Is it safe now with the traffic that we have currently on it? Or is it just, or is it not a safe now? We should take a look at it regardless.
I'm sorry, I missed that. The
Craig,
first part of your.
You got to answer this one, Craig.
Yeah, can you repeat the first part of that?
So it talks about number 9 under the executive summary. It talks about some line of sight That's, I guess, southbound approach. Let's see where it says, has a bridge column at the northeast corner that obscures the line of sight for vehicles on the southbound approach. And then further down, it says the city of Idaho Springs should further evaluate this site obstruction to confirm there is an adequate site distance. So are we saying that because of the increase of traffic there, we should look at it? Or is this something that we should be looking at now because it's unsafe?
Yeah, just from my cursory view, that intersection, that bridge column, or whatever it is obstructing the site, and I think that it could use some further evaluation. It's not based on any future or increased traffic volume, and we're talking about the intersection of Riverside and Colorado.
Oh,
so this is
okay.
So this is a little bit further to the west.
Okay.
Are you familiar?
Yeah, we're familiar. We've had lots of complaints about it. So, okay. Another question that I have is, during construction on the site, what is the safety, keeping the operation of the mill and the mine and mill? What are we going to do to ensure that the safety of the public is established over there?
Well, we'll have a plan, Mayor, in place. Obviously, we want to minimize impact to the public and to access to the mill and continue mill operations. I think that probably the most disruptive task that we have is when we underground the electrical lines, the Excel overhead power lines. We need to underground those along Riverside Drive, and that will disrupt parking. But what we've been talking with our contractors about is kind of a phased approach where we have an open trench minimalized and, in terms of the duration, so that we don't impact the mill operations. And we may look at some other, parking solutions nearby the mill, but certainly there will be some disruption, of course, to the public, both in terms of when we're building the parking deck. We may have periodic closures of Riverside. We'll coordinate with the fire department and with the police department, and the city is required, right? But it's a relatively tight site, so there will be some disruption during construction, but that's what we'll work to do, is minimize that disruption.
I just want to, I'm not sure everyone was clear that we are burying the utilities for what, 1,000 feet along Riverside at the Argo's cost.
Okay, that's all the questions I have. Council, continue questioning.
I have a question.
Scott?
So Travis was saying something about things that they could have in their toolbox. And I know that I feel like that gondola could put more people on that mountain than they would get kind of crowded at the top. The trails might get very crowded. Would it be a consideration to have in the toolbox where you limit the amount of tickets that you sell? Would that be a consideration?
Yeah, Scott, absolutely. That is a potential tool in our toolkit. As we would open and start to see what the visitors and the concentrations and the capacity would be, we could certainly move to a reservation-based system, which is very common for popular sites. And obviously we have parking capacity, the town has a capacity, and of course the site itself has a capacity. So we are absolutely willing to explore those as needed.
And I think all the questions about the parking, the traffic, I think that's the number one concern of the citizens. I believe that is the top of the list of this project.
Okay. All right, council, last chances for
one more time. Kind of going back, and I apologize if this has already been over and over. The $400,000 thing with a loan per se. Aren't we down 150-ish, $200,000 from revenues in sales tax as it is? I know that our grant that we applied for, it got denied. If we didn't get the grant, it seems the Argo is forcing a quote unquote loan down the throat of the citizens to indeed move forward with their project. I'm a little confused on that. Is there, understandably, there's more cost sometimes in a project. I don't feel like just because, yeah, it was voted on and it was agreed on and everything else, it was in fact denied. This grant that we applied for the bike park of it. But in order for them to move forward, they said, well, we'll loan you the money on this. Well, unfortunately, that didn't happen for the city, but there's, they have another agenda to move forward. Isn't that just part of, well, it's another added expense, but we want to move forward with this? Why is this our obligation?
Sure. Oh, Brian, you want to take it?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Jim. So because the grant was denied, I think we all agree in the spirit of partnership here that it's really important to have this trail system, a portion of it, completed when the gondola goes operational. I mean, that provides the access to the park, right? And so
sure,
absent with, and I know Gary Moore is on the call here with Colorado Mountain Bike Association, and he's got his thoughts on this as well, as far as their ability to raise private funding to supplement our initial funding while the city continues to pursue grant funding for the trails. So I think there's like 3 sources of funding here that you can look at. We just wanted to make sure, and our lender has agreed to provide financing. I don't think that we're forcing anything. I think we just saw an opportunity here to step in and create some critical mass of trails day one, while the city continues to pursue the grants, as I said earlier. So, and then because we have this construct in the PIA, which by the way is, as I understand it, is not part of the presentation or vote tonight. That's going to be deferred. And the PIA gets into the business terms of this $400,000 transaction. But this just gives you, the city and Argo, certainty that we'll have some trails when we open the gondola. That's the whole intent here. And that you defer then the revenue on the ticket share, which would likely take 2 years before we get reimbursed the $400K.
And if I'm not mistaken, Brian, this is not sales tax dollars. This is profit sharing that was going to pay back the $400,000. So it's not like the city is paying out of their pocket. It's paying out of the profit sharing.
Yeah, you're just deferring the revenue, the revenue share from the gondola ticket sales for the first 2 years. Exactly right, Scott.
Mayor?
Yes.
Either way, it's money the city's not obtaining. Am I correct or incorrect? Did I miss something?
So Jim, yeah.
So what?
Didn't.
Hang on a second. What I would like to do is have this discussion amongst council. I will make a suggestion about the PIA. I think there's still some conversation that the council needs to have amongst each other, and how this is organized, and the terms of it, and how it would work, and probably get some more definition for council. So with Carmen's okay, I would like to pull out the PIA from the rest of the project and allow the council to have a work session and discuss further that document.
Mayor?
Yes.
If I may. Certainly, if you notice into Councilor Clark's questions and concerns about the terms of that, and I think Brian just correctly stated, that's the PIA, which sort of gets into the business nitty gritty and the financing of certain improvements and cooperative agreements on those topics, is not a condition noted in Ms. Cole's staff report to you, and not amongst the criteria pertinent to the FDP per se. It all sort of wraps together, and I understand your question, Councilor Clark, and why you asked it. However, if you did wish as council to talk about that a little further, to talk with the Argo team about that a little further, which I hear their willingness to engage in that, maybe after you've talked amongst yourselves. That's something you could do on an additional evening, certainly. Again, all these things kind of work together, and we all agree that they do. So certainly, again, I understand the question, but that's something that is a little bit outside of the scope of the FDP strictly as addressed in Ms. Cole's staff report this evening. Does that make some sense to you, Councilor Clark? It's related, but it is that PIA was required by annexation agreements and I think perhaps even referenced in the zoning document. This is its own sort of animal that's related to that, but doesn't have amongst its review criteria the finalization of that PIA.
Yes, ma'am, 100%. Yep. But it does change the difference on moving forward, yes or no?
On whether this FDP complies with the code requirements, no.
Okay.
But as a council, if we decide that we do not want to accept a loan, does that not then slow down the process that we're talking about today? As far as the cable cars will go up to the hill and have nothing there if we don't accept the loan?
I don't believe so, Councilor Cacavelli. I think it affects the financing of the city's construction of its trails.
The loan was for the trail.
Right? Which again, you know, it's related, and the city and the Argo team have, from the beginning of the concept of this overall project, the parties have historically expressed a willingness to talk about these things and to talk about cooperating about these things. Certainly that doesn't mean, right, that anybody can twist anybody else's arm in a way that it doesn't want to be twisted. So all these things are negotiated and agreed upon, but the PIA, the Public Improvements Agreement, sorry, I hate it when people talk in acronyms that maybe not everybody knows. The PIA is again, a document that continues to be, I think, open to discussion with the Argo team, and it is very much about the financing of certain improvements, and in particular, your question, Councilor Clark, to the financing of the city's trail system. That is what would be affected by that term of the PIA that you're concerned with. That does not affect whether or not the FDP application, sorry, I did it again, the final development plan application meets the code criteria as addressed by Ms. Cole and her staff report.
But maybe this is for Andy. Andy, the grant that we applied for and got denied, was that a matching grant? I mean, our part of that grant would, we would not have been invested for 400,000.
We would have been invested 250,000.
Right. So now we're gonna almost double that.
Well, the ideal and the hope is to reapply for a grant and maybe not have to ask for or receive the 250,000 for all of the 400,000. Maybe we get the matching grant. We use that money to leverage towards the grant, and then the city's not pulling money out of our own pocket. We're actually getting it from them. That's going to be paid back through the revenue stream.
Oh, I understand that, but with the economic condition of this state, of the county and ours, and the federal government, I don't think we should be so optimistic about grants. Maybe I'm wrong, but there's a lot of shortfall in revenue in this country, and grants come out of that. And so I would think maybe we'll get a grant, but I don't think the percent is as favorable as it was before, and we got denied before.
So may I address the question a little bit?
I'm sorry, Mary Jane, hang on, please. Mary Jane, hang on.
Okay.
Carmen.
Okay.
Carmen?
Yes, sir.
So that portion of topic, this topic of discussion, per what Mr. Mayor and Councilman Cacavelli and everybody else has said about this quote unquote loan, will not affect tonight's yes, no, whatever on moving forward on the FDP, correct? This will be something upcoming later on. Did I get that right?
Indeed, you have not voted to approve that PIA.
Thank you. Okay,
as you know,
perfect.
nope. To be clear with everybody, a discussion was had, a very public discussion, publicly noted and noticed last Monday. And you as council, and Argo, of course, was attended and invited, discussed a draft of that document. You gave some feedback on that. Again, it was a public discussion, but it was a study session and no votes, right, could be taken. No formal votes, that is, in a study session. Only those can occur at a regular meeting. The council did not do that. Council did not vote on that PIA last Monday.
So Jimmy, may I just clarify for a second, and Art?
Yes, ma'am.
Team Argo, because we believe in this project so much and we love the partnership with the outdoor recreation and the heritage tourism, we offered that as a part of the public improvements agreement to get the trails going. We can take that off the table in our discussions. So that is not integral to anything other than it would help get the trails moving forward quicker, perhaps.
Mary Jane, and that's exactly what I could totally understand and see that, is that, you know, in a clear mind would say, well, then let's do this so we can keep moving forward with it. I totally understand that. I didn't want to feel like the city was being forced into a loan, quote unquote, per se, to help, you know, your guys's Argo's agenda. I understand. Yes, ma'am.
Not at all.
I totally get that. But with it, you know, it really doesn't look good when we're cutting over $1 million out of the budget to take on another $400,000 debt just cuts on one certain project. See what I mean?
Right. Hey, Jim, if I could just speak real quick to that. And I know that we're getting off topic because we're really not, Mr. Mayor's tabled the PIA from this vote, correct?
Right,
So,
yeah, and let's do that. Let's table the PIA.
Okay.
It does not reflect what we will be voting on tonight. We will bring council and the Argo team back to the table for discussion. And that'll give us some time, rest of council, to understand a little bit more, get more, because we have at least 2 council members that 3 council members that weren't on the council from the beginning, and understand the history of what happened and what has transformed down since the time, because back then it was the trail was going to move on before the gondola was ever thought about. So let's do that. So since we were getting off topic, we'll do that, and rest of council understands that the PIA has nothing to do with what we are actually going to approve or disapprove tonight. Is that correct? Everybody understand?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. Correct.
All right. So with that, any more last questions for our staff or the Argo team? Last chance.
Will there be a study on the load limit rating on the bridge before construction?
That was completed by a structural engineer in the, a load I'm not a structural engineer and I'm not a bridge engineer, but we did have our bridge engineer
Yes.
at Martin look at the load rating of that bridge and determine that it would be adequate.
Okay.
Okay. All right. With that, we will now, this hearing is now closed. It is 9:07 for the record. And now the council will discuss, there will be no more questions for the Argo team. Any more discussion, council? Everybody understands what we are taking a position on and voting on tonight, and understand that this has nothing to do with the PIA. We will have further discussion on that, help us understand a little bit more how that would work. And it would be a work session amongst us with participation of members of the Argo team. Everybody understands that?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes, sir.
Open it up for any other discussion from council amongst council. Okay. Hearing none. Do I have a motion? Did everybody hear me? Do I have a motion?
Is that in six number B?
Let me get my, so,
Mayor, I'm only asking because per our agenda, the next thing up on the
it's resolution, we're gonna go ahead and do it as resolution, it's a public hearing resolution number 13.
I would make a motion to approve resolution number 13, series 2020, a resolution conditionally approving a final development plan and related public improvements agreement to the Mighty Argo Phase 1 gondola at Virginia Canyon Mountain Park.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All right, council, last chance for discussion. Hearing none, can I have roll call, please?
Michael Hillman,
Yes.
Scott Pennell,
Yes.
Chuck Harmon,
Yes.
Bob Bolin,
Bob has to recuse
John
himself.
Curtis,
Yes.
Mark Cacavelli.
Can I abstain? Carmen, can I abstain?
For what reason?
For I don't think I have enough to say yes on.
No,
I was,
that's not reason to abstain, Councilor Cacavelli.
no.
Jim Clark.
Yes.
All right, with a majority vote, 5-1, motion passes. Congratulations, Argo, for all your efforts in getting this approved through our planning commission, as well as our city council. We're excited about the final product and working with you through the PIA. We'll schedule that work session very soon, hopefully as soon as next Monday night. So thanks again. Barb Cole, thank you for the presentation, and everybody of the Argo team. All right, with that, we still have some business to still do. So let's get to it. We will move to down to the resolution number 12. Do I have a motion?
Do we need to bring Bob back in?
Oh, yeah, all right. Jan, could you get Bob for us? All right, Councilman Bolin, you're back. Welcome back. If you haven't heard, the majority vote for the project to move forward. So, all right, let's get to a resolution 12. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve resolution number 12, series 2020, a resolution of the city council for the city of Idaho Springs, Colorado, to amend fees and charges for various city license permits and services.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion is Scott was second. Discussion, council?
Mayor, I have a discussion.
Okay, we're listening.
I just want council to know that this is something that is done from time to time to set or change fees for different things done in the city. Under admin time, I'm requesting that to be changed from $30 an hour to $50 per hour. For any Cora request, that $30 per hour is set by state statute. The $50 would be for anything else regarding admin time.
Is that the max, Diane, that like state law prohibits to charge, or is
The
that just
$30
a fee
per
we
hour?
came up with? No, the 50.
No, that's just something we set.
Well, why don't we make it 100?
Well, we don't want to gouge people.
Is this
Oh,
a,
boy, Jimmy.
is this a one-time change? Is this a one-time change, or is this allow us to change these at any time?
It can be changed at any time.
And how do we determine these fees? You said that the admin fees, there's some state fees that you follow, but
The
what
Cora
about
fees. Mm-hmm.
So some of the other fees that followed the same way?
Oh. Not generally. Cora, I think well, not even the liquor fees are not set by state statute. But I do know that Cora sets that $30 fee. We can't go beyond that. And the other reason that I wanted to do this was initially for the short-term rental fee. We had not adopted a renewal fee. So that is on here at $75. And I upped the license fee to $150.
Are these fee changes something that comes in front of council, or is that just something that administration decides to change? They can change it at any time.
Right. The city clerk is tasked with changing these periodically, and that's why it's, before you for approval tonight. The other thing I wanted to bring up too is something that John Bordoni and I had discussed about cemetery fees, particularly in the winter months, about how expensive it is for a grave in the wintertime. So you can see that the full winter fee for a full-size casket from November to March is $1,000. And the winter fee for an urn, same months, is $500. And that's just basically recouping their costs. A lot of times they have to rent the machinery to prepare the grave. So those are the big changes in that fee schedule.
And this is true even when we were doing construction on Colorado Boulevard and undergrounding our power lines. We needed to do it before it's a frost fee. And when that frost gets down 3.5, 4 feet in the ground, they charge out the kazoo to go ahead and dig. So I don't think that's appropriate for this kind of fee on that.
Diane, thank you for having that on there. And I noticed it's in your Schedule A where you highlighted the changes in red. That made it very easy.
Mm-hmm. You'll see this from time to time for the new council members. Just as the cost of things increase, so will our fees.
The rest of all right.
Diane, I appreciate you making that $100 an hour.
I'm sorry?
I said, I appreciate you making that $100 per hour.
Okay, any more discussion, council? Can I have roll call, please?
Michael Hillman,
Yes.
Scott Pennell,
Yes.
Chuck Herman,
Yes.
Bob Boland,
Yes.
John Curtis,
Yes.
Art Bailey,
Yes.
Jim Clark.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, we're gonna move down to C it's under the resolutions. Discussion and possible action on resolution 14, And this is about authorizing the temporary outdoor business operations. Does any of council have any different thoughts about what our staff and our task force has determined to come up with as moving forward and helping reopen and start recovery of our economics here in Idaho Springs downtown and closing off the streets? Does anybody have a position on that and discussion?
Just a comment, Mayor. I think you said something about it's all adaptable, and I think that's what we got to keep in mind.
Okay.
And I would say that we have a lot of businesses that are dying on the vine right now. We've got to try something. And this is a good first step. Like Scott points out, we can always massage it later.
Okay. Any other comments, council?
If I may, Mayor.
Yes, Carmen?
Sorry, just a real brief comment. As I think is obvious, there are really two issues and two elements addressed by this resolution. One is the liquor licensing issue, and one is the encroachment into city and city property, city streets or rights of way. Two very distinct issues. This resolution simply allows city staff to administratively and quickly process requests on both of those fronts and approve that temporary only applications to modify liquor license premise and occupy streets or sidewalks. If you allow the streets or sidewalks further, right? That's another element of this. You have to further consent to, say, allowing a street or a sidewalk to be occupied. If you do, council, temporarily allow that in response to this COVID pandemic, this resolution would allow staff to quickly process those and respond. And again, to Councilor Harmon's point, because this is a resolution, you can easily and quickly as council amend this thing, tweak it down the road, rescind it, extend it, etc. So we as staff heard and continue to hear the concerns and fully realize that city businesses need something to try to help them through this time. So this resolution tries to get you there and get our businesses there. That's all. Thanks, Mayor.
So, and with that, I believe that, and Andy, correct me, are we on 120 day or 90 day?
120 as far as the liquor license is concerned.
Okay, so that's what's happening. We're allowing this for 120 days, and then we still have some good weather. We could extend that, like Carmen said, with a quick resolution. This can be done really quick.
And wouldn't the governor have to extend that order, Carmen?
This resolution actually automatically extends the effectiveness of our temporary COVID response to whatever the state or Clear Creek County does. So indeed, Diane, if the governor extends the state's order past the 120 where it is now, the city's allowance could also go that far, and we wouldn't even need council to weigh in on that. The council could go a little further if they wish. Again, if the governor lets his 120 days or the state lets their 120 days expire, we could come back to council at that point and say, you comfortable with letting our allowance expire as well? So that would be up to council at that point.
Okay. Any other questions on this? All right. Do I have a motion?
I move that we approve resolution number 14, series 2020, a resolution authorizing temporary outdoor business operations and the administrative processing of associated applications for temporary liquor license modification of premises and encroachment permits.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Michael Hillman,
Yes.
Scott Pennell,
Yes.
Chuck Harmon,
Yes.
Bob Boland,
Yes.
John Curtis,
Yes.
Art Cacavelli,
Yes.
Jim Clark.
Yes.
Okay, with the next ordinance number 7, this is where I will recuse myself from the meeting and the discussion. I'm going to hand it over to Mayor Pro Tem Boland, and I will sit and listen.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Okay, item, let's see, 12, ordinance first reading, ordinance number 7. Would like to start with the reading and second of the ordinance, and then we'll discuss. So motion and second, please.
Well, Mayor Pro Tem, I move that we approve ordinance number 7, series 2020, an ordinance authorizing the reimbursement of the authorized expenses of Mayor Hillman related to the April 7th, 2020 mayoral recall election in accordance with CRS 31-4-504.5.
Okay, and second on ordinance 7?
Second.
Okay, all right,
Sorry,
discussion.
who was that? Who seconded that motion?
I did, and someone else did.
Thank you.
Okay, discussion, please. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to point out that this is for $3,420 that the mayor had spent out of his own pocket.
Right.
That's for more than that, Chuck.
Well, he was only asking for the amount that he had spent out of his own pocket.
Yeah, and it was authorized by the CRS that we've been quoting.
Right.
Yeah, and so it was really only about 50% of the actual expenses.
Exactly.
So the 7228 is not due back to him?
So that's a good, okay. Mike, if you could certainly enter into answering questions here, I should think. Okay, apparently he.
No, I just had to unmute. So, Councilman Clark, I'm only entitled of certain items, and there was a part of the expenses that did not qualify for that reimbursement. So even though even the expenses were higher, then I'm only able to ask for what I actually spent out of my pocket. The other half of my campaign was paid for by donations and support from the outside.
Okay, obviously you can't, yeah.
Okay.
You can't recover donations, obviously. So the 3428.
I can. So I had a campaign consultant. That is not one of the reimbursable items. So I could not include that. And then there was actually some additional funding that covers some of my other expenses. But the only amount that I can ask for is the actual money that has been recorded by my campaign treasurer as reimbursable.
You want us to take up a collection for the rest, Mike?
Hey, if you want to do that, you're more power to you. Thanks for that. I appreciate that. You know, and I would like to say something as well. But you know, with this and my business being closed, I would really appreciate a yes vote on this, and so at least recoup some of the costs that was associated with that. So thank you very much.
Well, per the state statute, you're pretty much entitled to that, sir.
No, if council agrees to it.
Yes, it's quite clear, and I think in the packet, the mayor's letter pretty much explained all of this. So, okay, I would
Mayor
call.
Pro Tem Boland.
Oh yes, Carmen, you said something.
Mayor Pro Tem Boland, members of council. As you can see, you're touching on some of the topics that I tried to outline in my very brief memo to you on this topic. Not all expenses, as mayor addressed, are those that are eligible under the statute for reimbursement. And I do want to be clear to you and everyone that the statute does entitle the mayor or any officer who is the subject of an unsuccessful recall election to request these. And then it is entirely up to you, and it is entirely your discretion whether or not to grant that request. I do not want to misconvey or for you to misunderstand that staff, anybody is telling you that this is mandatory. It is indeed an entitlement. He's entitled to request it, and it is up to you whether or not you wish to grant it. So I just want to be clear.
Thank you, Carmen.
You bet.
Thank you.
Any other discussion or questions?
Actually, I have an item
Diane?
on the letter submitted by the mayor that was date stamped May 11th. He says that he has documented that he spent $34.28 from his own pocket, but on his list, he's listing a total of $3,727.31.
Yeah, I noticed that.
It's quite a difference. So what exactly are you asking for, Mayor?
Well, like I said, I can only ask for what I personally spent. The rest of the campaign was covered by campaign donations. I only pulled out, and one was a cash money, and the other was a check, and it totaled the total amount on there. I don't have it right here in front of me, but I can't ask for more than that, even though those expenses were higher. I can only ask for what I actually spent out of my own pocket.
So you're asking for $3,428?
That is correct.
We're going for the higher number, Mike.
Well,
I said we're going for the higher number.
GoFundMe account or
That's how we do it in the Windy City.
Okay. All right. Any more questions or discussion then? And I think we do need to clarify the amount here, but we do have the motion.
Yeah, Mike, do you understand that your rough draft was 3,700 and that your letter was 3,400? So there was a discrepancy there of the two numbers.
The money out of my pocket that I spent, the total expenses came up for the reimbursable expenses came up to the 3,700. Okay. Anything that if I would have spent $3,700 out of my pocket, I could have asked for that $3,700, but I only spent $3,400.
Okay.
Does that make sense, Scott?
Good enough. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, it's only what I pulled out of my, I would love to have the other few $100s, but I'm not entitled to that. And I would never ask for something that I wasn't entitled to by the state statute.
Okay.
All right. Any further discussion?
Okay.
All right. I believe we need a roll call vote on this, Diane.
Do you need to clarify the amount, Bob? Did you say you need to clarify that?
Well, the ordinance or the motion.
It's 3,428.
Okay.
Yeah.
Scott Pennell,
Yes.
Chuck Harmon,
Yes.
Bob Boland,
Yes.
John Curtis,
Yes.
Art Cacavelli,
Yes.
Jim Clark.
Yes.
All right. Motion passes.
Thank you. And thanks, council, for the unanimous vote. I really appreciate that.
Okay,
all right.
Back now.
I will take back over, Bob.
And again, Mayor and Council, just to be clear, that was a first reading on the ordinance. So this will come back to you again for second reading. When we do bring that back to you, Council, we'll make clear that it's the 3,400 rather than the 3,700. So I appreciate your clarification on that tonight.
Okay.
All right. Thank you for that, Carmen. Okay, we're gonna kind of run through this. City Administrator, your update, please.
Mayor and council, you have my report before you, and the big news is, and the good news to all, we'll take it, is the flowers are scheduled to be delivered on June 4th. Next Thursday. Summer is here.
Well, there you go. Yeah, I was telling somebody, last year at this time, it was snowing. Everybody kind of loved the parade. And because it was nice weather, they said, we ought to do this every year like this. And it's like, well, if you remember last year, you wouldn't have been saying maybe we should do this next year. So The flowers are going to be here, and I think we're going to continue to have some good weather. So that's a good blessing. All right. Any questions for City Administrator Marsh? All right, Diane.
Mayor and Council, you have my staff report for your review with no request for action.
Okay. Any comments or questions for Diane? One thing I'd like to say is Diane, through the closure of City Hall to the public, they really held this office down, and we couldn't ask for a better group of folks in this front office and dealing with the public in the way that they're having to do it as a remote situation in a virtual situation. So thanks, Diane, for all y'all are doing in there. So
Thank
all
you.
right.
It's worked out well.
Thanks, Diane.
Thanks,
Thank
Diane.
you.
All right, Chief, you're up. Chris?
I think he went to bed.
Band.
Okay, we're gonna get him
He's in
back.
here. Hold on, I'm getting him.
We're getting him.
He's having issues.
Don't tell him that. Yeah. He's calling me.
He's in now.
Hey, Chief, we got you back in right now. You should be able to get back in. Yep. Oh,
Just muted. There it comes. You should be good.
It's calling me again. Hey, Chief, John said you should be able to get in now.
Yeah, I had to change, and this one doesn't have a mic or a camera.
Okay.
I'll refer everybody to my report, and I have no request for action.
Did everybody kind of hear that?
Yep.
All right, good job, Chief. And I want everybody to know kudos for Chief and what's going on out there. We've had a lot of incidents that have been happening. They seem to increase, and Chief has been on top and a steward to the city by every morning that we have our meetings. He's the one, if John does the updates for our website and for the public. He takes care of all that. John does it when Chief's not here. So, Chris, hats off to you for doing a great job and taking the extra step to support our community. We appreciate it. Okay, anybody else got anything for Chief? All right, okay. We will move to Public Works and Streets and the Water and Wastewater, and that'll be John taking care of all that. John?
Mayor and Council, you have my staff report with no request for actions. As you mentioned earlier, we will be working on another water line tomorrow at 16th and Water Street. Depending on what we find, it could affect the entire city with lower water pressure. So I just want everybody to be aware of that. You won't lose pressure, but you will be affected by water pressure.
When is that going to happen, John?
We're going to start working on it tomorrow and find out exactly what it is. And then we may not fix it tomorrow. We may fix it Thursday when we have a better idea of what it is that we need to do.
Is that the one up in somebody's yard close to the house?
No, this is on 16th by Water Street.
Oh, okay.
The other one that we suspect is on Riverside in front of 2999 Riverside, fortunately in the gravel area. So that one will be probably next week.
Okay. Thanks, John.
When we affect water pressure, we're not required to notify the public, right?
No, we're not required to notify public if we lower the water pressure. If we lose water pressure, then yes, we are, but we don't intend to lose it completely. It will be lower.
All right. Thanks, John. Keep up the good work up there. John spent a lot of time in weekly meetings on our updated wastewater plant. And, without John out there doing that, we'd be in a bind. So thanks, John, for all the hard work that you're doing through this difficult time. All right, I don't think we have any committee reports because we haven't been meeting. I don't have anything else. So with that, it is 9:35. Carmen, thanks for being with us through the whole course of the evening, and meeting will be adjourned. And we'll see you. We'll probably have a work session next Monday night.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.
Good job.
Right.
Good night.